Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 119. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. So today I'm very excited for our guest. She is a woman of strong faith, an amazing wife, a mother to two beautiful children, has been an athlete her whole life. Growing up, she did swim team, basketball, wrestling, kickboxing, karate, water polo, played water polo in high school and in college. Graduated high school about 2 years early and actually had to have her mom drive her to take her college placement exam. She enlisted into the Air Force as soon as she was old enough, was a physical therapist, has done personal training, nutritionalist, has done a handful of physique competitions, finished up her college, got into med school, graduated med school at the top, got her number one pick for all 5 years of her residency, which is not common. Graduated at the top of her residency class to become a surgeon. Also during this time, got married, had her second kid, went back into the Air Force and was commissioned as an officer and is now a captain in the Air Force where she is serving as a surgeon and also an instructor teaching others into the medical field. She is also one of my best friends, someone who I am extremely proud of for everything that she has done, overcome, and endured in her life, and is my little sister. Sara, how are you?
Hi.
Love you.
Good. Love you. Thanks for having me.
Lucas, what's up, buddy?
I'm just experiencing deja vu since I didn't push record in the studio and we had to do this already once. That's what's going on.
That's good. I got my nerves out of the way.
That's good. Yeah, me too. I'm owning my mistake. And also, I had some really good lines in there that no one will ever hear. So we'll see if they come up organically again. Definitely not going to force it.
All right, Sara. You shared a really good bluff. What's the bluff? And what is a bluff?
It's the bottom line up front. Hey. I know this because we've talked about it so many times.
You're such a quick learner.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
The instructor side of her just came out.
Yeah.
No, I'm
impressed that I took that note and wrote it down.
Oh, man. So growing up with two older brothers.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about it. We've, very fortunate. We had a really good childhood with our parents and had us in church and just heavily involved in, serving at church. And, we're very active as kids, which I'm very thankful that our parents had that ingrained into us, mm-hmm. which is the foundation of who you still are. So what was childhood like? Mm-hmm. What were some of your favorite sports,
Yeah. So childhood was great. I mean, honestly, we grew up with two parents who said were, very supportive of us being active and trying different things. And looking back, honestly, they really put forth a lot of effort to making sure we could try different things, which is really a blessing. Tried soccer once, wasn't a soccer fan, moved on, was able to try. I mean, I was 5, right? And mm-hmm. I think the sun was in my eyes, so I didn't like that. So... I moved on.
You didn't just use eye black?
Yeah, no.
No, I'm done with this.
Swimming was great. We all swam. We were really blessed because, swimming is actually expensive. I have a 16-year-old daughter who's in swimming year-round and the suits every year and all of this. It's very involved. But, our mom was an aerobics instructor at some clubs that allowed us to basically use those for free. So that was great.
That's cool.
And then that kind of evolved into playing water polo. Mm-hmm. And rugby was probably my favorite, though.
I did not list that.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. Yes.
That's okay. Yeah.
She was
rugby
gangster on the
rugby.
rugby.
But funny, it sounds...
What's rougher, water polo or rugby?
They're rough in different ways, right? So they're both endurance sports. Oddly enough, you get hit in both sports.
Yeah.
We were just talking to my daughter about this in water polo, how, there are definitely ways to hurt people without the refs calling you out on it. But in rugby, right, it's pretty blatant. You're just straight up tackling people. But I was a strong side flank, and so I was on the outside of the scrum and was just a fast runner. And then when I would tackle or get tackled, the goal is just to quickly get the ball back on your side of the scrimmage to keep moving. And I did that for my 2 years in high school and then 2 years in college as well. I moved up. I was at Sac State University playing at 16. And so since I was
16 years old.
16 years old playing rugby in college.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I got all that right.
But I wasn't that large. And so I got taken out pretty quickly, to be honest with you. I was it was like towards the end of the season, luckily though. But I was running, had the ball, was going for the tri-zone, and got taken out. These two big Samoan girls just came at me from opposite ends and tackled me. And you wear metal cleats in rugby, and my cleats stuck in the mud, and the rest of my body moved and my knee didn't. And just kind of took it out, went out. Didn't really feel it at the time, pretty much just kept going. And then, your adrenaline is kicked in. And at the end, when I felt it, I took off my cleats and could barely stand up. And then eventually had to have surgery on it. And what was funny...
What kind of surgery?
For that, I actually just tore like my meniscus, and
Okay.
I had what's called a plica band, which is basically an extra cartilage that a lot of people don't have, and that kind of got disrupted as well, but it wasn't that bad. Yeah,
it sounds
So
not that bad.
those were all pretty fun. But when I was first learning to play rugby, it sounds like, oh, you're so hardcore, you play rugby, but I was pretty scared, to be honest with you. I was like, what did I get myself into? And I remember our parents came to one of the games, and they were watching me run and tackle and this and that, and Dad comes up at halftime and he's like, Sarah, you have to open your eyes when you're tackling somebody.
Good advice.
I mean, but just the statement of what you just said, so many people, I want them to like remember that and like just receive it and apply it. Like, you were scared, yet you were still out there doing it.
Yeah.
You didn't let that fear hold you back. You're a 16-year-old girl playing college rugby. Like, that's crazy.
That's rad.
I did a lot of questionable things, to be honest with you, and I probably still do, but that's what I've decided is the theme of my life. What am I doing? Like, what are we doing here? I don't know. But then I just do it anyway, and it eventually works out. So that's kind of a lot of it, right? So with the sports and then with college and going early. So I didn't have to leave high school early, but it just kind of, I got it in my head that this is something I wanted to do. We had a friend of a friend that had taken the high school equivalency exam in California, which gives you your high school diploma early. But before I did that, I went and I took placement exams at the local community college because my parents were saying, rightfully so, saying, no, you can't go away to college at 16. Okay. I guess
Valid.
that's reasonable.
Says you.
Yeah.
Very valid.
Yeah, very valid. So, but our local community college in California, American River College, had transfer agreements. So you go there 2 years, and right away you sign a transfer agreement for the 4-year degree that you want at the university. And as long as you maintain a certain GPA, you get an automatic transfer admission to that university.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, so I did that. But at first, it seemed kind of bizarre, right? I had just turned 16, and I went to take the placement exam at the college, and luckily did well, got actually 100% in the English and math to place which classes to start in, and they asked me to be a tutor. And so that was weird. And then, but I went back and took the equivalency exam to get my high school diploma, but I wanted to finish the year, even though I technically didn't have to, just finish it so I had that completion on my school records. And our English teacher, we both had the same English teacher, Mr. Riley.
Oh, yeah.
And he had my results. And before you could leave for the day to decide which row would leave early, he would do like a spelling question or something like that. And I would answer, and he's like, oh, by the way, this is Dinnell's last class. She doesn't need to take the test because she got a 100% placement exam in college. Dismissed. Goodbye. Everyone turned around because I hadn't told my friends. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving high school. And that's how it was announced. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? One of my friends was so mad at me. She just like didn't talk to me for a while. She's like, I can't believe you didn't tell me you're not coming back to high school. I was just like, well, here we are.
I had planned on telling you, but thanks a lot, Mr. Riley.
Yeah, we're not going to be friends next year anyway because I'm going to be in college. What's it matter?
Yeah. So I go to college at American River, and I knew then that I wanted to go to medical school, that I wanted to be pre-med. But honestly, I was a little scatterbrained. So I was taking the pre-med classes, but also in any college degree, you have to take basic English, sociology, psychology, some history, a foreign language, things like that. And so I kind of mapped that out with my counselor. And then I'm also working. I worked at In-N-Out Burger.
Heard of it?
Yep. I was an amazing fry girl.
No doubt.
Lifted those potatoes like a madman. And then played rugby, and it was off season from water polo, and then I would teach swimming as well. And so basically how like my days would work is I would go and swim in the morning for water polo, morning swim, and then do my classes, and then in between classes I would have like 2-hour breaks, and then that's when I would tutor. And then after class I would teach a 4-hour swimming class to kids and adults, and then have our water polo practice at night, and then do my homework and whatever. And that's what I did during the week. And then on the weekends I had games, and then started working at In-N-Out as well.
And you're doing all this at the age of what, 16, 17?
16, 17, yeah. And it was funny. I had a couple of students that when we sat down for their tutoring session that were like, how old are you? And I remember one guy, I was like, you don't want to know. So just let's focus on your homework, sir.
Meanwhile, he has like a gray beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, listen, A squared plus B squared, buddy. Let's work on this.
But it was bizarre because at the time you don't think of it, right? You don't think like, oh, this is a weird thing to be doing, but it was cool. I got to meet a lot of really cool people. A lot of the students that I tutored, it was English as a second language for them. It was they were in ESL classes, and so I met some really cool people from other countries, and to hear their stories of what they went through to struggle to get to America, to come to college and get a United States education was really inspiring. So you make the best of it, and it really kind of humbles you.
That's also an awesome thing to be exposed to at that age.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
most teenagers and even young adults don't get to experience interacting with people from another country who have like sacrificed a lot and fought a lot to be able to come here and have access to what we have. And I'm willing to bet that also helped shift like your mindset to being very thankful for what you had.
Absolutely.
And what we had growing up. And that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was a really good experience. And then I got more, so then that was like my first year in college, second year in college. I got more into the pre-med kind of clubs. And it was cool because we would meet as groups and go down to local medical schools, and you could do like a sit-in day where you can kind of see what it would be like a day in medical school. And then I started volunteering at a hospital, and I did 2 different volunteer jobs. One was at a community hospital, and I worked on the surgery floor. And this was an old community hospital where they literally had a switchboard. And so one of my things was sitting at the switchboard and wait for the patients to press their call bell, and I would kind of answer it. And if it was, hey, I need my water cup, or I can't find my remote, something like that, I would go help them. But if it was something more legit, then I would track down the nurse, And that was my first exposure to really sick patients in a hospital, on the surgery floor. Things like, I'd go in, some guy had brain surgery, and his thing was he asked, he said, my head is stuck on my pillow, and he wanted me to go and like peel his head off of his pillow because his wound was seeping and was stuck. And in hindsight, I'm like, why did they let me do that? That seems like a horrible idea. I had 0 training.
Yeah.
Another was sitting for a patient, and I won't tell you all of the gory details.
I don't want them.
But so now they have like medically trained, this person is maybe like a med tech or a patient care technician that sits with a patient that maybe is going to be potentially dangerous to themselves or others. They're delirious.
Oh,
and they
gotcha.
kind of
Yeah,
sit in the room to make sure they don't harm themselves. And so they sat me in a chair by the door and gave me some magazines and said, yell for help if he gets out of bed. And I'm sitting there in like my volunteer white polo and khakis with the magazine, like looking around, and all of a sudden this guy jumps out of bed, rips off his gown, starts trying to pull lines out, and is just screaming, ah, like pulling his lines out. I was like, help. Yeah, but
you had to put down Tiger Beat so that you could.
yeah, yeah. But so that was my first exposure to the hospital. I'm like, okay, well, I can still deal with this. But then the next thing that kind of solidified, not only did I know I wanted to be a physician, but a surgeon, was one of my tutoring students. I tutored actually him and his mom in sign language. That was my foreign language in college in California. I think a lot of colleges you have to have a foreign language. And
that was my wife's foreign language was ASL.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. And so I was tutoring them in ASL, and then it kind of evolved nicely. Good job. Yeah. Into they also hired me to tutor him for his high school classes, and so I would go to their house and tutor them, and she would cook dinner and stuff like that. And it was pretty close to Sac State, so it worked out. Before or after rugby practice or something, and his dad was an anesthesiologist at the local hospital, and started talking to him about medicine and things. And long story short, he let me shadow him a couple of days. And so that was my first exposure into the operating room.
How old? 17?
I was 17 now. Yep, I was 17. And so, fun fact, that wasn't actually like a legit thing to do. But he was like a higher up anesthesiologist, and it was around the holiday season. And so he was just like, come with me, and grabbed me some scrubs and basically was like, stay at my side, like, don't talk to anybody.
Stolen valor. No, just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
If anybody starts to talk to you, only use sign language.
Yeah, only use sign language.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And so I'm super pumped, right? I'm like, I'm pre-med. I know I want to go to medical school, and this is my opportunity to be in the operating room. And he prepared me. It's going to be a long day, back-to-back, 2 open heart surgeries. Awesome. And so I'm standing at the head of the bed with him, anesthesiologist, right? He's explaining all the machines to me, all the pumps and what everything does, and the physics and physiology behind it. And it's really, really interesting. And then there's a drape in between where anesthesia sits in chairs like this, very comfy, cozy, and they have all of their gadgets. There's a big blue drape, and then the patient and the surgeons are on the other side and everything. And then after we're done talking about anesthesia, they bring over a step stool and say, do you want to look at the surgery? Absolutely. And he's like, just don't touch anything blue, which is all the sterile field. And, because then it ruins everything. You're not sterile, and they have to like start over. So I'm like super paranoid. And you're wearing a mask and everything, which now I'm very used to. But at 17, first time in an OR, I was not used to that at all. And so I'm standing there. I'm so paranoid I'm going to mess it up. And I'm so focused. And I'm like breathing weird in the mask. And I'm not touching anything. And I'm not moving. And I'm just staring at the surgeons working. And I'm so mesmerized. And next thing you know, I wake up on the floor. I passed out.
Maybe where this is going.
Yeah. So
just tunnel visioned and
It just didn't move, and
you're so locked in.
I was so locked in and wasn't moving that I just passed out, and woke up to like some nurse like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry." I was like, did I hit anything? He's like, no, you fell in the correct direction.
You didn't go head first into the patient's chest cavity.
Yeah. So that worked out well. So that was my first experience in the operating room. For anyone who thinks they can't be a surgeon just because that happens, went, got some juice, stood, and he asked, hey, are you sure? Do you want to stick around for the second one? Are you okay? I said, yes. I'm good to go. It had nothing to do with the blood. I just wasn't moving or breathing, really. I was just scared I was going to mess something up.
My body just forgot to operate.
Yeah.
All that happened. That's the only thing that happened.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then from
That's
that.
intense focus, though.
It was, yeah. So from that day, I was like, I want to be a surgeon, right? But then fast forward a little bit. I won't draw this out too long, but basically,
this episode is about you.
Yeah.
So
well, I know.
Yeah, no, it is. So
It's weird, but so that's when I knew I wanted to be a surgeon. But then at the end of those 2 years, I'm transferring to the university, right? Sacramento State University, still playing rugby, but I no longer have my scholarship. So I had my first 2 years of college paid for. I no longer had scholarship funds. University tuition is expensive. And I was already working as much as I could while going to school full time. And mom and dad, unfortunately, they could help a little bit, but they couldn't afford a college tuition. They were, had their own struggles. And we were kind of in this in between of I wasn't on my own yet to qualify. So it was still under mom and dad's income. And they were right in that gray zone where I didn't qualify for assistance. And so it was like, we can afford for you to take one class at a time. It's like, well, that's going to take 12 years. So I was also working on my private pilot's license at the time because I was like, oh, do I want to be a pilot, doctor? Turns out I had ADD, but
go figure. What are you doing in between rugby, polo, tutoring, and visiting the hospital as a volunteer, also doing pre-med? I'm just working on my pilot's license in case I need a fallback plan.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
that's amazing.
It sounds a little psychotic when you say it like that, I guess. But
Or awesome.
Yeah, it sounds
I think it's
totally awesome.
I think
as a
it's
teenager.
awesome.
I did
Yeah.
not watch TV. Let's put it that way. There was no social media during
You
this
didn't have time
period.
for Netflix in the midst of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? This was like early 2000s,
Yep.
Yeah.
So my aunt and uncle, Aunt Carolyn and Uncle Eric, lived up in Washington State, and they were in the Air Force. Our aunt, a nurse practitioner, was a flight nurse, and he was a pilot. And I was very interested in that and went and stayed with them for a few months. And they... Excuse me. They exposed me to what they were doing, and I thought it was really cool. They were in the reserves, but flying on a regular basis, and really exposed me to the opportunities that the Air Force could provide. And so initially I thought I wanted to do a flight med tech, which seemed like a streamlined thing to med school. But the wait list for that tech school at the time was over a year. And I just kind of wanted to get the ball rolling. And so they introduced me to this job called a loadmaster. And so I ended up signing up for that. And that is, you're an enlisted air crew on the plane, and you're in charge of all of the loading and unloading operations. You have to do the math, the calculations of where everything goes on the cargo plane and how it gets tied down and things like that. And what's really cool is the recruiters in California said there was no positions open for a loadmaster at Travis Air Force Base, where I wanted to join. And so Aunt Carolyn knew somebody that she flew with that knew somebody, right, and called the squadron and said, can you please give my niece an interview? And so, so they set it up. So I went back to California, and they were able to set up actually an interview with the squadron before I even went to boot camp.
That's awesome.
So I was,
That's really cool.
yeah, which is pretty bizarre. And so I was able to, I went to the squadron, met everybody, went out to the plane, and part of the interview for this job was that you had to take a handwritten math test, no calculator, and you had to go out to the plane and be able to take off all the doors, put them over your head because they were like 50 to 60 pounds, and walk up and down the plane carrying all of the doors. And
So this is like one door at a time, not
Yes,
like stacking
correct.
all of the doors. Okay, I don't know how many doors are on a plane.
that's a valid
But-
question.
Yeah.
It was one door at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because typically these jobs were not, loadmaster typically isn't something you do straight out of boot camp. It's like people, maybe they were an engineer, they did something else and they come into it. And so without being prior service, they wanted to make sure that I could really do the job before they committed to sending me to training. So that was pretty
Smart.
cool. Yeah.
Little did they know that you've been training with two young men that have been playing Navy SEALs their entire lives, getting ready for this exact thing.
Yeah. So I passed that. They signed me on, and so I signed up actually in 2004 for the Air Force, and then I went to boot camp in the beginning of 2005. And so then I went through all the Loadmaster training, and that was in Altus, Oklahoma. Beautiful area. If you haven't been, there's a Sonic.
Really?
That's about it.
Man.
Yeah. They don't have the training there anymore. The Air Force
What appeal.
decided to move it. Yeah, that was about it. So that was that kept me busy, but it was great, right? Because there's no distraction. So I studied, I worked out, I swam. They did a pool on base, and so I would train, swim laps, run, things like that. And so went through basic training, went through basic Loadmaster school, and then I had to go through the altitude chamber physiology training, which is pretty cool. They basically make sure that you can tolerate going up to altitude without oxygen, when you get delirious and things like that, when you get deprived of oxygen. What was really crazy what happened there's like another weird story of just God intervening, that when you go in, you have to have a Class 1A physical, and that includes dental, to make sure everything's good to go, that you can tolerate being in the plane if you lose pressure, right? And I went through all of the physiology training, and then I'm in the chamber getting ready to go up to altitude. And this guy, it's like bizarre, it's like a movie, runs in and goes, "Stop," and super dramatic. And they stop and turn, and he's like, is A1C Dinnell in here? We need her out to dental. And they were like waiting until the last minute and looked over. Apparently I had like 2 cavities, and they were worried that the holes in my teeth would like cause my teeth to explode at altitude.
What?
So they literally like pulled me out of the chamber before it went up.
So there's a legitimate reason why you have to do those Class 1 dental exams
Yes.
for that training.
Yeah. Isn't that bizarre?
I've never. Okay. How does that work?
So
How would your teeth explode going up?
like when they don't pressurize it. So when you're in a plane, you're in like a controlled pressure situation.
Right.
So your body isn't experiencing the physiology of 30,000 feet.
Okay.
But in this chamber, you do. And so the gas exchange can theoretically cause cavities to burst your teeth open.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Could you imagine being in there and that happens and you have no idea what just happened
Yeah.
inside of your mouth?
That's why you're also not supposed to fly when you have, in the military, not civilians, you'll be fine, with colds, because your sinuses can rupture. And so it wasn't totally uncommon if you're in a military plane and something happens to one of your flaps, your seals, for whatever reason, you have to put on oxygen and you depressurize the plane, that eardrums pop, sinuses pop, and apparently your teeth can pop.
Bruv. That sounds so absolutely unpleasant, and
Yeah.
has just unlocked a brand new fear I never knew that I had.
Yeah.
My teeth exploding.
I'm just thinking like how lucky I got over my time in the military when they're like, "Hey, you got to go do this stuff," and we just wouldn't do it. We just wouldn't do it, and we would go do training. And I have been in the altitude. I am. This was like 20 something years ago, and I'm like, my palms are sweating thinking about what could have happened, because there's like guys hating on to dental.
Yeah.
If
well,
somebody would have
rightfully
just
so.
told me that, so let's look
Isn't
at it
that
from
like
like
a thing though in the
let's-
military is don't go to the dentist.
Well, no, people just avoid it because
Well-
typically you don't get the best dental work done in the military. I'm still getting a lot of mine like fixed and replaced and whatever. So it's just like a horrible experience for most people, because they
Yeah.
use. I'm not a blanket statement for all dental techs in the military. I'm very thankful, obviously, for all of our dental techs in the military. But what I've experienced, it was people like straight out of school or in training, It was never the person with the experience doing the dental work on me.
Yeah, it's just some kid with a Dremel tool and a mask saying,
Oh,
like, hey, lean back.
100%. Let's say what it is. It was horrible. I then spent 2 weeks with lockjaw because they did all 3 root canals at the exact same time. I couldn't open my mouth for days. It was horrible.
Yeah, but had somebody just, I'm thinking about this from like a leadership aspect, had somebody communicated that to us, like, hey guys, the reason why you have to get your class 1 dental work done is because as you're going through this training, this is what you're going to be exposed to. Here's a legitimate risk that's going to be associated with you going into these altitude chambers. We got to make sure you have all your stuff done. Had somebody said that,
Yeah.
all of us would have been at dental lined up.
Yeah.
100%, because all it is just a check.
Okay.
It's a check.
Because like, I am curious, having met a few of the guys that you gone through training with, and having had some conversations with.
I can tell
with
you
some of
one
those
thing
guys.
that guys do not want is what Sarah said could have just happened. I would have 100% done all my dental exams, maybe not the work, but the exams. I would have done all the exams to at least been signed off.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it does make me wonder though, like how many of those guys might have been like, nah, I'm fine, my teeth won't explode.
I have tough teeth.
Yeah, BTF Tony would have been like, whatever.
That's exactly right. Like
Like,
there's a couple of guys.
There's a few guys.
Like I think you and Andrew Paul would have probably done it, but I'm not sure about Parrot. Like Birdman might have been like, nah, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's valid. It's valid. Carlos would have gone because he's smart.
and too handsome to not have perfect teeth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry.
nice little God moment
Yeah.
intervention.
Absolutely.
So you're in that chamber.
Yep. So they pull me out. I go get my dental work done, and yeah, it was very unpleasant. They did 3 root canals at the same time. Couldn't open my mouth for days, but I just got to kind of hang out on base for like 2 weeks, and then then they put me back into the next class. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like walking around, and people were like, "Who do you belong to?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know what's happening." Being in the Air Force Reserves was wild. I was in, and then I went to a second like tech school, and I was like on the opposite wing of all the other kids, and they were all like with roommates down this other hallway. I was on the opposite hallway, literally by myself. I had like 3 beds in my room, and it was just me. And because nobody knew really who I belonged to, I was just like under the radar. So people would like use my room to hang out. I never once had a room inspection. That's the most Air Force thing ever. Like in all of tech school. I also have a list of things for JP of like, this is the most Air Force thing ever.
Well,
Yeah.
your daughter, Erin, who I love, and she's incredibly smart, like big shocker, coming
Yeah.
from Sarah.
They
And
do say intellect is genetic.
yeah. Well, Erin is incredibly smart, and I'm sure Sarah will talk about a little bit more about like what she's currently doing right now and wants to do. But last night, all the kids, because Hayden's in town right now as well. So you have Aiden, Hayden, Erin, Cora, and then little baby Micah. But all the older kids, the teenagers, were going to go for a walk last night, and they come back. They're getting ready to go back out, and Erin says, I'm not going to quote her perfectly, but she says something along the lines of like, well, do you guys have like a reflective vest or something I can wear, for like safety or whatever? And Sarah just straight up goes, that is the most Air Force comment I have ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
It was awesome because it was such a valid thought and like a legitimate, like, oh, it's dark in our neighborhood, like there's not street lights. We live out in the county-ish, not ish. We're in the county. There's not a lot of street lights. That's what we love. At night, it's dark. Our neighborhood is dark. Our property is dark. We love it. You see all the stars and it's great. But when the kids go out walking at night, there's an inherent risk. And we tell them like, hey, maybe don't wear all black and or camouflage.
And they're
Close.
like, well, how are we going to avoid these ring cameras if we don't do that?
Yeah, well, apparently they're not very good at.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We'll talk about that later, maybe.
Yeah.
And okay, side note: if kids are doorbell ditching you, don't be a douchebag and call the sheriff's department on a kid doorbell ditching you one time.
Yeah.
Like, good Lord. Anyways, so no,
Folks are so uptight.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
No room inspections.
Yeah,
that is Air Force.
So that was my first
I love the Air Force.
like basic
Jealous.
loadmaster training, physiology training. And then I got to go back to my unit, kind of check in and everything, and then drive back to Oklahoma for C5 specific loadmaster training. So it's like a 2-part.
What's the nickname for the C5? Is it the Hercules?
No, well, we called it Fred. Freaking ridiculous environmental disaster.
All right, NCCs, we got a new acronym.
Our squadron, so the C-5 is the largest cargo plane in the United States military.
Just for example, like what could you carry on a C5?
Oh, goodness. 6 Black Hawk helicopters.
6?
6. So the load plan for that is very specific, as you might expect. And so if you don't have the nose of, bird 1 in the exact fuselage that you need it at, bird 6 will not fit. Right? So it's very specific. So go back to Altus for the C5 specific training for that. And they put me I was enlisted, but they put me in like the officer's hotel. And the rest because again, I was coming from my reserve squadron and they didn't know where to put me. So I wasn't in the dorms with all of the kids in my class. I was literally like, I had like a kitchenette.
They're just prepping you for that officer life.
Yeah,
no
I had,
joke.
my room was cleaned twice a week.
Wait, hold on. Your room was cleaned and not you cleaned it twice a week?
Correct. That is correct.
Hashtag officer life. Let's go.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And then after that, then I went to SEER. And so then that was survival, escape, evade training up in Washington State. And so I had to do land and water.
Yeah, it stands for, I believe, survive, evade, resist, and then escape.
Exactly.
In that order. Like you're out there trying to survive and you're trying to evade being rolled up. Mm-hmm. If you get rolled up, you resist. Like you've got to resist that, and you resist interrogation and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then part of the code to that school, or just a military code, right? I know someone's going to correct me in the comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Is you also, it's expected of you is that you will escape at any time. Like you try to escape as you never stop escaping. Yeah. Like you escape, you get rolled up, you go back to it again. And so it's a really cool schooling. And
Tony talked about this a little bit. Now, is that
there's different tiers.
I was going to say, yeah. So
different tiers for different
levels.
And so air crews is actually a little bit, it's not, it is different than the SEER school that we would go through. Sure. Mm-hmm. And it's very specific to what an air crew.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really cool. It's all, based off of if your plane goes down behind enemy lines, what do you do, right? Mm-hmm. Or you might not know if you're behind enemy lines or not. And you just kind of have to assume that and act in that way. And so it was pretty cool. We would get the kind of land-based, classroom-based training first of what you're supposed to do when you're out there, what to expect, how to do land nav, things like that. And it was kind of in a phased situation where first we would have instructors with us, right? And then eventually one night they disappear. Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun. And then basically you're going through your land nav and you're learning how to make fires, and you have to kill a rabbit and skin it and cook it, play little bunny foo-foo with a rabbit skin maybe.
Yeah.
Just making puppets.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
I mean, you're at this point like almost a week of no food. So when you get your rabbit.
Exactly. And then it's not tasty, but it does the job. But without giving away everything, right?
Yeah.
Eventually you get rolled up no matter what you do. They're going to capture you. And then off you go with a bag over your head, off to some boxes. Mm-hmm. And
Boots.
Exactly. Yeah, they play some crazy music, and then you all take turns kind of getting tortured in various ways and interrogated and whatnot. You're in it, and they make it, so realistic that you really get sucked in. Mm-hmm. But I knew going into it, okay, this is training, right? They can hurt you and things like that, but they can't really hurt you. Yeah. So unfortunately, I did kind of make a joke of it at one point. Like I took it seriously, but I was being interrogated, and this guy was slapping the bejesus out of me, right? So they can't fist punch you, but they can open hand hit you a lot. And
they tell you to grab your pocket. Like for us, it was like they say pockets, and you had to grab your pockets, and you knew that you were getting ready to get slapped.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I don't recall that, but that makes sense because they probably didn't want you to hit back.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah,
They might have just done it for our class because it was all SEALs.
probably.
It was literally all of SEAL Team 3 and 5, like when we were brand new checking in.
That had to have been way more intense.
I would imagine you guys are the type of people that might have tried to hit back.
Well, yeah, it's also regular Fleet Navy guys doing it. So they're like, oh, we got to tune up some SEALs. Awesome.
Oh, gosh.
They also had to go admin because they couldn't roll us up. They couldn't find us. They had to go admin. They're like, all right, and then they rolled us up, and like it was like, hey, if you don't come out, like you're not gonna pass training. So they went admin, rolled us up, and then went straight to like slapping the crap out of us. And guys were like, cool, I'm gonna find you on North Island. And guys were pissed. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
that's
it's
very
just funny
relevant.
the difference of the SEER school. So some dude's slapping the crap out of you.
That is hilarious. I would not want to be the guy slapping the crap out of you. But yeah, and he slapped me in the stomach at one point, and I mean a lot of it was, and I was just flexing on him, and I go, ooh, right in the baby maker. And this guy turned around and started like laughing mid interrogation and had to leave the room because he had to like recompose himself.
What accents were they using? Were they acting like they're Russian? Like
No,
us?
Middle East.
Oh, you guys are. We had the Russians.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting. And then after that, then you go back to your squadron and then you do on the job training to get fully qualified. So this whole process is like over a year, because then you go back and you have to do all these check rides to get qualified to be a qualified loadmaster. So that was the first stint in the Air Force kind of, and then I'm qualified loadmaster, and it's fun. I enjoyed it. Traveled the world. I got to spend time in some really cool places, Spain, Germany. I went to Hawaii a lot. I went to Guam, Korea, Thailand. Diego Garcia was one of my favorite places, little Indian Ocean.
That place is cool.
Yeah, place. I'm not sure if you've heard of Kuwait City.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, Djibouti, Africa, a little bit of Iraq, a little bit of Afghanistan in there. And yeah, travel the world for several years. And at the time, in the kind of height of the war, while you were also in the war, we were doing leapfrog missions. And so we were basically, you would just go out on blanketed orders for about anywhere from 21 to 30 days at a time, and you wouldn't have one specific mission where, now it's, hey, you have this load and you're bringing it here, and then you come back. Well, the mission would travel with the plane, and the crews would go as far as they could until they had to go into crew rest and then wait for the next mission to come to them.
Oh, wow.
That's rad.
So that you just kind of don't stop. And so this was in like 2005, 6, 7, for those 3 years, pretty nonstop. You would leave Travis Air Force Base, and if you're going downrange, then you would stop somewhere on the East Coast to pick up a load, fuel, etc. Usually do in-air refueling over the ocean.
What's that like?
That is pretty cool. So it was usually at night, and which is even more bizarre, right? And yeah, I mean, the pilots and the engineers did all the work, right? As a loadmaster, the only thing I had to do was reconfigure the weight of the plane for our landing center of gravity. So my part was really easy. They're the ones that had to line everything up and move the fuel.
Were you doing that while they're loading with fuel, or did you wait for once the fuel was loaded, then you would shift the weight?
Yeah.
So that way it was within the measurements that it needed to be, or the calculation, so that it would be a safe landing.
Yeah, correct. I would wait till after.
And then were the pilots and engineers helping calculate, like, hey, this is how much fuel we have, this is how much we're going to burn, this is how much we'll have when we're landing, and then based off of those numbers, then you make your adjustments?
Yeah, so there's kind of like a lot that would go into it. So at the beginning of a mission, I would know obviously what our dry weight was, what our payload was going to be for our load. And so then there's separate calculations within that. So I would say I was loading tanks, okay, and some pallets. So I would say the tanks need to be obviously potentially more in the center of the plane, right? But if we're going for a different runway length for takeoff and we need our center of gravity to be a little bit more aft, then I would shift the weight a little bit more aft and then maybe put the pallets up front or vice versa. If it's going to be a longer flight and they want their landing runway CGs to be a little bit different, their center of gravity. And then for each individual thing that went on the plane, you have to calculate how much needed to be used to tie that down with chains and or straps based off of the G-forces in all different directions. So vertical, lateral, forward, aft, and you would calculate that. And then you would have different weights of chains. So you'd have 25,000 pound rated chains, 10, 15 and 10,000 pound rated chains. And, you would have your loadout configuration for the tanks, the helicopters, the Humvees, the trucks, whatever went on it, and calculate, okay, this one needs, maybe 6 forward, 6 aft, 4 lateral. And if it's sometimes on like tight loads, it would just be us. Or if we're going with a crew, there would be a group of Army guys that would maybe be doing the chains, and then I would go around and measure them, because then, obviously you're only going to get 10,000 pounds out of a 10,000 pound chain if it's exactly 180, right? If it's straight up. But as soon as you change the angle of where it's tied down to, that 45 degrees, then you reduce the tensile strength of that 10,000 pound chain. So then you're maybe only getting 7,500 pounds of G-force pressure from that 10,000 pound chain. So you have to measure the length and the angle of each chain to make sure you're getting the appropriate. So you could say, hey, for this helicopter, I need, and I'm just making this number up.
Yeah.
Right? Say I need 10 25,000 pound chains and 10 10,000 pound chains. And this many need to be lateral and this many need to be forward and aft. And then the guys set it up, but the angles are really steep. So then you might have enough, because you need for 3 G-forces vertical. So you take the weight of the object and multiply it by 3, and that's how much weight you need for vertical G-forces.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so if you have all of the chains really steep, great, that helps you for your vertical G-forces, but that doesn't help you for lateral. And you need 2 times for lateral and then 1.5 for forward and aft. And so you have to multiply it, and then that's the max that you need. So say you have, to keep it simple, a 10,000 pound vehicle, you need 30,000 this way, 20,000 this way, right? And like 15,000 this way. And then you make sure you have enough chains in that direction. But if they're like really far at a steep angle, good. Now you have your lateral G-forces, but you have no vertical G-forces accounted for. So it's balancing each individual item as well as the entire weight of the plane. So once you figure out where that object goes, then you have to worry about how it's being tied down.
Yeah, how long did it take you to load up? Like obviously, it would depend on how many items are going into the plane, right?
Exactly.
But like on average, if you're saying like you're having to do this, how long per item did it take you to get something like properly loaded up? Because what you're talking about is a really pretty complicated, like for the average person, like what you're talking about, I'm like, I would just not put anything in a plane ever. I would rather just say, you know what, nothing gets to go into Fred. Fred's just gonna go empty, and we're just gonna hang out and cruise, because I'm not doing this much math.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you eventually get pretty good at like guesstimating, right? After you do it enough, just like anything you pull out. So, I would carry my wrenches and my tape measures and stuff to check to make sure everything was like cranked down tight, and then measure the length and everything, and that the hooks were in the proper direction. But say if you're just doing pallets, so the load configuration is going to be different. That you can get done in 2 hours. If you're doing 6 helicopters, it's probably 6 hours.
Good night.
So we would go out to do our job before the pilots and engineers, while they were doing their flight planning. We would go out, and we had to learn how to basically turn on and operate the plane independently without them. So we would start the air turbine motors and the auxiliary power units to power everything. And then I would operate all of the hydraulics on the plane to open it, and we could actually tilt the plane based off of what we were putting on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so the C-5 is cool. It's the only plane right now for the U.S. military that opens the nose and the tail for loading. And they can be put in different configurations. So they can be put in what's called a truck loading configuration, where you have a flat ramp that just goes straight out like a loading dock, basically. And then they bring K-loaders up with the pallets, and we would marry them and then push the pallets from the K-loader onto the plane. and then you'd flip these rollers and they get locked into the rollers. So these were pre-configured pallets that like you're probably familiar with.
Yeah, we would load those out, and that's why I actually went to abbreviated version of the schooling. I was a load master in the teams, or load planner. No, not a master, load planner, whatever, whatever it is, load something, right? Load planner, I believe, where we had to go, and it was actually taught by the Air Force, and they taught us how to do this. Myself, Hasby, and a few other guys from our task unit did that, and because that was part of our roles and responsibilities as new guys on our second platoon was building out pallets, because the pallets had to be built out to your guys' configuration so that they could be loaded and secured properly.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Awesome. And so we would work with every branch. We would work with Navy, Army, Marines, God bless them, and they would more often than not configure their own pallets, especially Special Forces, because they didn't want us to know what was on it, and we would have it in the load plan, but really it's up to you guys to know where your stuff is and how that all kind of goes, right? So you can set one end of the plane up for the K-loaders, and then that's where those pallets go, and then they lock into these rollers, and it locks on the sides. Those are easy. You're just pushing things on rollers, right? Lock them in place. Just make sure that you have the correct number in the correct spot. And then you can put also, and you can do that in the front or the back, and then you can also configure the front or the back for a ramp. And so you can bring out a ramp to drive stuff on and off. And then within that, we have built-in winches on the plane, and then we also have this tool called a snatch. So just picture this, right? Early 2000s, only female, more often than not on the crew, dealing with winches and snatches.
Oh, jeez.
I'm just going to let that marinate.
That's awesome.
So so you can do that to kind of configure your pulley system. Like maybe if you already have these two helicopters here, but your winch is here, then you can use your snatch to reroute your cables around those tires, so then you can pull the plane up, onto a different side of the plane.
That's very cool.
Bring your wheels up. You can fit school buses on there, semi-trucks. We would bring semi-trucks on there that would have, different things inside of it, different flight planners, things like that for the military. And then we actually one time brought a C-130, a whole nother cargo plane, disassembled, take off the wings and the tail, and put the whole fuselage of the plane into our plane. There's some really cool pictures you can look up. It's like giving birth to another plane.
That's insane.
Yeah. And then there's I think there's two C5s that are configured. It's called the Scud model. It's a C5 C model. So there's the A, the B, and then the C model, that the troop compartment was completely removed in the back. So in addition to the cargo box, there's the troop compartment, which can hold 73 troops and 2 load masters, has 2 ovens, 2 bathrooms, 2 refrigerators. I would set up my pulley system back there for like lifting during long flights on the grates. But the C model has that completely removed, and then the back doors, instead of opening kind of laterally, more like the C5 normally did, it like accordioned all the way out, so you could put the Titan IV missile in it, which is pretty cool.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
I know you're looking that up.
So there's one with the front opened up. Mm-hmm. The way that comes off.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. And then there's one with the C-17 coming out of it.
Oh, the C-130.
This one, there you go.
Yeah.
C5 versus C-17.
Yeah, because the C-17's up in the sky there.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so the C-17 is also a large cargo plane, but is definitely smaller. It does not have the troop compartment, and it's like a row smaller as far as being narrow. Mm-hmm. But it's a little bit more tactical. It can land on shorter runways and stuff like that, and do a little bit more maneuverability. So
Eric flew the C-17, 130, and the 5, right?
So he did not fly the 5. He flew the 130, the 141, and then they retired the 141 and brought out the C-17, and then he flew that.
The C-17 is what he flew me overseas on my first deployment on, right?
You got it. Yep.
Yeah,
so your uncle flew you on your first deployment?
Yeah, he picked up the mission.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool story.
Some pretty cool stories of like our families meshing in the military. So One
This
time,
is good because this is one of the questions that I've got on here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one time I was doing a loadout in Japan, and I was the load master in charge, and so I have my Army guys come up, and I'm telling everyone where I want everything to go and the chains and blah blah blah, and kind of the group, and everyone kind of disperses and starts to do their jobs, and I'm standing up on the side. I would frequently like stand on the catwalk to like see what everyone's doing because I was like small and there's all these like big Army dudes around, and they didn't want to listen unless I was like standing tall and yelling. Anyway,
Adds up.
and then I look over and there's Colby Brush, our cousin, who was in Japan.
Nice.
And he was tracking my tail when I was coming in. And we ended up being late and going somewhere else. And I was, at the time, actually, we didn't have cell phones that were working overseas. Yeah. You would have to go to the internet cafe to send an email.
Yeah.
Were wild times in the early 2000s, kids, I'm telling
This
you.
is insane.
Wild, wild west.
It's the wild, wild west.
Flip phone razor.
Napster.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. And yeah, there was Colby Brush on my plane.
That's so cool.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
So we got to hang out for a little bit, which is really cool. And then another time I was, I think I was coming or going to like Guam or Thailand or something, but stopped in Hawaii first, and Carolyn was leaving, and we like exchanged a 6-pack on the tarmac.
So
like
cool.
crossing paths on the tarmac.
Dude, that is awesome.
Yeah.
So you said you were in and like flying in like 0506, kind of that time range. That's around the same time that you.
Exactly.
This is my first platoon, second platoon, yeah.
Yeah. So as those things are happening, like what's that like for y'all? Like, are you communicating? Are you like, how much can you let each other know about, what you're doing? Or are you at least sending the messages of like,
No.
hey, like,
No.
I'm good. Are you good? Kind of
I
a
mean,
thing, like
yeah,
doing little
like
check-ins.
general emails, like vague emails, but there was never, because that's a big thing, especially back then in the military. Like, you're not talking about where you're flying or what you're doing, because if any of that was to get out,
Yeah.
so we never talked about any of that stuff.
So a lot of people that I know are pretty like after they come home they talk about a lot of the places that they've been, but they're definitely more open with other people that served than they are with civilians, because there's camaraderie there, common experiences, those types of things. And even there's a different degree of it if you find somebody, even if they're part of a different division of the military, branch of the military, that if there's two people who saw combat, right, it doesn't really matter. I say saw combat in combat zones, that the camaraderie that they have is even more so than maybe somebody from their own branch that didn't, right? Because there's all these different things. Your shared experiences and all of that stuff are vastly different in each of those different contexts. That said, both of you are serving at the same time, both very different missions in support of the United States as it relates to your specific branches and the theaters that you were in. Like, how much, when y'all are getting together for family events and things like that, how much have your conversations changed from when you were active duty and maybe you're seeing each other, I don't know how often, maybe once a year, or maybe less? How do those conversations change between like, hey, neither one of us can really talk about anything that we're doing, glad to see you, that you're safe, how's everything going, to now, where you've got families and you're at a much different place in life where you're having those same conversations, or do they even happen?
I don't think they really come up.
Yeah, we never really talked about it back then. It was more like when we saw each other, it was just, I guess whatever was going on in life we'd talk about.
Yeah.
And then now it's, me, like when I picked up her and Brian and Mike from the airport the other day, I was just wanting to learn about, like, okay, cool, your current job. Like, what are you doing in the Air Force now? And, I understood kind of like what she's doing, but I didn't really know. And so it's just more of, I don't think we've ever really dove deep into any of those conversations. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it was just, It was just us. Yeah.
And even then, I think it's like you don't really, at least for me, you don't really understand like the impact of what you're doing when you're doing it.
Oh, 100%.
You're just kind of in it, you know, which is, I guess, hard to explain. But, you know, thinking back, some of the like missions I went on, it was so different from what, you know, JP and other people were doing. But even at the time, I didn't actually really understand the impact. You know, I was 19 years old and, you know, I'm going through this training of, okay, you're going to look out this window and let us know when a rocket's coming at the plane and tell us which way to turn. This is true story. This is how it was done, right?
Yeah.
And so part of my job at 19 years old, we were just talking about the responsibility of 19-year-old kids nowadays, was to be posted at my window when we're leaving combat zones and look for red squiggly rockets coming at us. And be able to tell them what kind of squiggly rocket it was, so they could deploy the flares or turn the plane. And then when we would land at our next location, go into a locked room with no phones and explain to the guys what squiggly red rockets I saw, right? And we would go through training of this too before we would get signed off of like, you're watching these like video games and learning about the different rockets and the different guns that are coming at your plane and stuff and how to call which way it's coming and things like that for them to deploy the flares. And you know, and that happened a few times and we had engines go out and various things. But I literally never thought to even bring it up at the time. That was just what I was doing.
It was your job.
That was my job.
Which this is the thing that's crazy to me, because so many of the people that I know that do serve, they're like, oh, I just did my job. This was my job. This was my job. Meanwhile, right, those of us who aren't in service, all we talk about with each other is our jobs. You know, it's like, hey, what'd you do at work? It's like, oh, I had this weird lug nut that I was messing with, or you know, like, oh, this, you know, the 2x4 order was bad, and so everybody's like talking about all of these weird things that happen at work. Is I had a bad cell in my Excel sheet, and it's just ruined things for the whole quarter, and it took 6 of us to get through it. Meanwhile, you guys are identifying squigglies like it's back in, you know, Masters of the Air time and trying to tell people which way to go at 19 years old. You are camping out on rooftops. Y'all get together and you're like, hey, how's it going? How's work? Oh, just did my job.
Yeah. I think when we would get together, we would just talk about like, oh, who are you dating?
Yeah.
Let's go get a beer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is it's so it's just so different than, you know, than a lot of the rest of the world operates. And this is one of the things that I think for people in my position, it's so fascinating about the whole thing.
Yeah, I know it's actually something that Sarah's going to get into, or at least we talked about it, and she wants to. Cool. If not, then we don't have to. But just like dealing with like trauma, and I wouldn't say like what she was just saying is like trauma, but I don't think the military does a good job at teaching people how to like just talk through stuff and navigate it. It's not like we had traumatic things that we had to share with each other, but we also just didn't talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things is like like I never wanted to talk to my sister about like what I saw and like what I dealt with. Like I just didn't want, you know, like I barely talked to like my Aunt CJ about it. And she was a trauma nurse, right? Like a flight surgeon, or not a flight surgeon, but
Flight nurse.
A flight nurse. And she actually
dealt with a lot of trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. The trauma that Aunt CJ dealt with on deployments is just unreal. And she actually, I believe I'm saying this correctly, unless I fabricated this in my brain, but I think she's even worked on like team guys that were injured overseas on flights.
It's very possible.
And so like I didn't even really talk to her about like a lot of the stuff. I talked to Uncle Eric a little bit. But like I never, like I just, and that was my thing, is like I didn't want to like talk to my little sister about those things. And maybe I should have. Maybe I shouldn't have. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, dude, that was like 20 years ago. Yeah. But I think that's part of also maybe like both of us. Cause like just for her as a 19-year-old female, like doing all those like trips and back to back and the op tempo. I mean, it's awesome. It obviously built resilience for her, and just being able to experience that as a 19-year-old female, like, or just let alone any human, right?
Yeah.
Young man, young woman. I think it's a good thing for you to be able to learn, because you learn how to deal with adversity and be flexible and like, okay, cool. Hey, something's not going the way I wanted it to. Like, all right, I'm going to have to adapt.
Yeah, for sure.
Which has been the story of your life, like, as we're getting ready to get into, because, you're enlisted in the military, you're doing this, but you still have the desire to become a surgeon. And so what are some of the next steps of your deployments, military, getting out, or you stay in the reserves, and then, your path?
Yeah. So, so once things kind of slowed down a little bit, I went to true reserve status, which is just, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year.
Oh, I've heard the commercials.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Best kept secret out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I had already done 2.5 years of college, and I still wanted to go into medical school, but I was still kind of back to, maybe there's a quicker way, and I kind of lost sight. And I was doing personal training at the time, and so I guess kind of skipping around a little bit. I at this time moved to Pennsylvania. And I had an interfly agreement with Dover. So I would still sometimes fly back to Travis to do my mandatory flights and stuff like that. But then I also got an interfly agreement with Dover Air Force Base. And so I could just drive down and do flights with them to maintain my flight status and training. And was doing personal training, and then started physical therapy assistant school, which is normally a 3-year program. But since I already had all of the science classes, math, anatomy, stuff like that done, I just had to take the physical therapy specific courses. So then it only took me 1 year. And it was at Central Pennsylvania College, and that was a 4-day-a-week program. And then I would have a 3-day weekend every weekend that I could either go fly or work or whatever. And so I did personal training, sometimes in the morning. I had a few clients, and then would go to school, and then go to the gym in the afternoon. And then, being ADD, then I started serving as a waitress at Carrabba's. Ended up starting a personal training business outside of being at LA Fitness. And so I did both of those. And then I was doing competitions for women's figure bodybuilding competitions to kind of just, keep me involved in that. Why not? So I did my first couple of competitions out there in Pennsylvania, and as on par with my theme, I had no idea what I was doing. We didn't have really a lot of training, and I just found some videos of how people were posing, and I was like, sure, I can figure this out. And I obviously knew how to work out and nutrition and stuff like that, but got up there and had no idea how to pose. So I ended up getting second place in all of my competitions. And afterwards talked to some of the judges, and you look at some of these pictures, and not to sound vain, but I looked
way
better than a lot of these girls. But my posing, it's the attention to detail, right? I didn't know how to present myself properly. And so I learned a lot from that, which was really good, really humbling. And I guess to get kind of back on track with career-wise, did the physical therapy assistant degree, which is a 3-year associate in applied science. Finished that in 1 year because I already had all the prereqs done, which was really cool. And so then I thought that's what I wanted to do instead of being a doctor. Maybe, this will kind of satisfy my desire for being in the medical field, and it's kind of a build on personal training, and kind of could fulfill all of that desires. And then as soon as I graduated that, ended up moving back to California, and started flying right away again. Got put back on active duty orders. I was still in reserve squadron, but got put back on active duty orders. Started flying a lot again, and was going to try to go back to school. Didn't really work out because I was flying so much. Did that for another 1.5 years. And then had my daughter Erin. And then we decided, me and her dad, to move to Florida for a job opportunity that he had. And so moved to southern Florida. We lived there for 1 year, and I ended up doing aquatic physical therapy in the Boca Raton area, which was cool. So it was a combination. I would spend 3 days a week in the water and 2 days a week on land. And so aquatic physical therapy is really good for patients who are wheelchair bound, have back issues, nerve damage, things like that. And just the weight of gravity is too much and too painful for them to get their range of motion. And so you bring them into a deep saltwater pool and you can get some amazing range of motion, cardiovascular workouts, things like that.
Are you using like equipment in there as well? Because like I've seen some stuff on videos that have to do with physical therapy and things like that, where they've got like underwater treadmills that they've got people on and those kinds of things. Are you using that type of equipment with the aquatic therapy that you were doing?
You can, but I did not.
Okay.
We did all one-on-one sessions, and it was all hands-on.
Okay.
So some of the equipment I did use was mostly just for manipulation of joints and things like that. But otherwise, it was all just water resistance, and I would do spinal manipulations in the water too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to put traction on the spine to kind of open up the facet joints and take the pressure
Right.
off the nerve roots.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And then eventually you would graduate patients from water to land and would do that as well. So I did that for a year. And then the time came for us to leave Florida. And I had never been to Annapolis, Maryland before. But her dad was able to go back into the reserves at Dover. And so we knew we wanted to be in that general area. At this point, I was getting more headstrong of I need to go back to school. While I love working in physical therapy, I still want to go to medical school. And so the DC, Maryland area has a very high concentration of hospitals, schools, things like that. So it worked out. And actually, I had a phone interview with the hospital I ended up getting hired on at, and it worked out really well. And moved to Annapolis, Maryland, where now I've lived there for 15 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so we moved up there, and I was working at Anne Arundel Medical Center as a licensed physical therapy assistant, and I immediately went back to school at night to work on finishing my bachelor's. And what's great is the hospital had a tuition reimbursement program where if you were getting a degree that worked towards your career field, your manager could basically sign off on your report card and submit it to HR for tuition reimbursement after the classes. And I was not going back to school to get my doctorate in physical therapy. I was going back to school to get my bachelor's in science for psychology and behavioral neuroscience as part of my pre-med requirements. And they're like, well, that's technically not in our career trajectory, but we want you to go to medical school, so we're going to sign off on it.
Dude,
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah. So they were really amazing. They really worked with me on helping me adjust my schedule. And so I was working initially 4 10-hour shifts so that I could have then 3 days to do school, right? So I would work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would consolidate all of my classes in college because I had to go back and do the higher level, like quantum physics, organic chemistry, and calculus, and microbiology were like my last classes that I needed to finish.
And how old is Erin at this point?
She was almost 2.
And this is typically a rude question to ask, but how old are you at this point?
I was 25.
Is it intimidating as a mom of a toddler to go back to school?
Yeah.
How intimidating is it to then go back to school when you're in your mid-20s? Because there are a lot of really intelligent people that I know that the reason that they're avoiding going back is because they're like, I don't want to be the old person in class.
I think that's, I think we worry more about ourselves than other people do.
Valid.
I
No
was
doubt.
in classes with people of all ages, and never was I like, why are you here? I
So
never
true.
thought that, right?
That's so
like
true.
literally never was I like, ooh, why are you taking chemistry? Gross. You're like 30. No. Like that doesn't happen. We only care about ourselves because we're so egocentric. It's the egocentric.
I hate everything she just said.
because it's right.
Yeah, I know.
I know, it's bad. It's true though, right?
It's so
Yeah.
true.
I may find out here soon, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
So, but no, it was fine. It's just I had a moment that really just resonated with me when my daughter turned 1, and I was like, wow, look at all she's done this last year. What have I done? At that point, in her first year of like when she had turned 1, I wasn't in college. I wasn't working 3 jobs. I wasn't doing all of these other things, right? I was, not that there's anything wrong with it. I was raising her. There's nothing wrong with that. But for somebody who was normally very ambitious and had all these goals that I just like put to a halt, loved having that opportunity to be with her, no better job than being a mother. But it's like, look at everything she's done in a year. Like when a kid falls down, they don't just stay down. They don't think about it. They don't think, oh, I'm embarrassed. Somebody just saw me fall down. They don't think, that's it. I'm just not going to walk anymore. It's too hard. I give up. I fell. I tripped. I'm done walking because somebody saw me fall. No, they get back up and start running. They don't even get up and start walking slowly and timidly while looking around and caring what everybody else thinks. They fall down and they get up and start running. And I fell down and I was going to let myself stay down. Right? And so when she turned 1, I said, nope, I'm not going to care what other people think that, oh, you told us you were going to do this and that, and now you're changing your mind. So what? So what? You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to get back up and start running. And so when she was 1.5, moved to Maryland, and I got back up and I started running. I went to school full time. I was taking 6 classes at a time while working full time and taking care of my daughter as a single mom. Her dad was there helping, obviously, but it was very different. I had no family in Maryland, completely isolated, and I just kept running. And so I finished my bachelor's, finished my pre-med classes, signed up for an MCAT prep course with the Princeton Review, took that at night. God bless one of my friends at the hospital. She would babysit Aaron for free so that I could go to my night classes for a few hours, and then took that. The first time I took the MCAT, which is the medical college admissions test, I did not do very well. Wasn't a great test taker, but I said...
Yeah, I mean, you never had to do it. Your grades were always good enough to where your English teacher was telling everybody you're going to college.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to take the test. You're good enough. Yeah.
My organic chemistry final, actually, I didn't have to take that either because I already had...
Humble brag.
Always. He's like, if you have this score, like you don't have to show up for the final because it's not going to change your grade. But that's because
I
it
can't
was...
spell organic chemistry confidently. She didn't have to take the final.
You use talk to text.
Yeah. But it's because I was interested and motivated in those classes. Fun fact, I got a C in public speaking. I got a C in art history.
I mean, that's a super valid class, though.
Yeah.
Art history?
The history of art.
Yeah. I got a C in those classes because I didn't care. I didn't study. I didn't show up. I was like, this is dumb.
And you still got a C.
And I got a C.
Listen, I would have given you my math homework, and you could have given me your art history homework, and we would have both made the president's list.
Crazy. That would have been amazing. Yeah. So that's how I transitioned to that. And I retook the MCAT, did better, and I kind of, went back and forth with some issues so I applied to medical school my first round, and I was very ignorant in what I was doing. I just didn't know enough about how the applications worked. I only applied to like 5 places, and they're all very top tier and in the local area. And my application is all over the place. I was never your traditional, I went to high school, I went to college, and now I'm applying for med school, right? That's most people in medical school.
You needed the extended pages when
Correct.
you're filling out your stuff.
Yeah. And they're probably like, what is happening here? All of these gaps, right? And then all of my classes are from 3 different colleges, all kind of pieced together. So it was not the traditional package that most people would want. And so I got waitlisted, which is, not a straight admission. It's not a straight no. But I was impatient and I was shadowing some of the surgeons at the hospital that I was working at to get letters of recommendation and just get more exposure in the operating room. And actually, one of them suggested that I apply to this one particular Caribbean school. And I had not wanted to initially because a lot of Caribbean schools get a bad rap for maybe not being very well accredited or not producing legitimate doctors, things like that. And there are, unfortunately, some of those out there. Mm-hmm. But he explained to me, well, there are some bad ones, but he said these top 3 ones are legitimate. They are actually accredited where you can get federal funding. You do all of your clinical rotations in the United States. And he said, we hire doctors from this school on a regular basis. He said, there's just, not enough seats in U.S. medical schools. So he's like, these are legit. He's like, you can still get a job here when you come back, even if you go to this Caribbean school. Okay, I'll trust you. Great. I applied, and, it was a hard decision because at the time my daughter was 5, turning 6. And basically, shortly after her 6, she was 6.5 when I ended up leaving the country. And that was a really hard decision because I couldn't take her with me. So I didn't want to go at first. The first time I got accepted, I threw it in the trash because me and her dad were not on the same page with what was going to happen with custody and things like that, and it wasn't worth it to me. And then I said, well, I still want to use my degree. So I was actually signed up to go, I was going to go back into the Air Force as an intel officer, actually. And her dad and I discussed, and he actually said, well, if you're going to go away for training for intel school and officer training, he's like, you might as well just go to medical school if you're going to do that and go away anyway. And so I said, okay, as long as, we could have an agreement on custody and things like that. And so long story short, I did. So I went to Ross University, which at the time was in Dominica, Southern Caribbean, cool little island. Since then, unfortunately, there's been a series of storms that wiped out the campus a few times and they could no longer rebuild it. So they transferred the school to Barbados.
Another just terrible place to
I know, right? Yeah. So Dominica was a cool area of the Caribbean, but, definitely third world. So, you didn't always have power and water and things like that when storms would come through. Mm-hmm. Yep. So people were like, oh, you're in the Caribbean. That's great. I'm like, yeah. I'm
trying to do med or pre-med, right?
No, this was now in medical school.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You're trying to do med school dealing with no power,
yeah,
no running
I
water.
studied for a test once with a flashlight. But, hey, here we are.
Make excuses and make things happen.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I got to medical school first week. I had reserved a campus room, and it was supposed to be cheaper short term, and then eventually you move off campus. And I get there, and it's first week. The first week, they purposely just kind of slam you with classes, and then you have your first test. It's, a very small percentage of your overall grade, but they want to test how you're doing being acclimated to medical school, and probably, a wake-up call, right?
Do you think it's smart? Are you
Absolutely.
glad they did it?
Absolutely. Yeah. But here's what happened my first week of medical school. I get to the island. I get to my new dorm room basically, and I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad. I'm gonna make the most of it. I go to the little store on the island to get little things for my room, and I get some bug spray and start cleaning it and stuff like that, and cockroaches come flying out of the cracks of my walls.
Oh no.
Yeah, just from both sides after I sprayed. I was like, freaked out, and I leave, and then I come back in, and I'm trying to clean everything up, and I can't. There's just cockroaches everywhere. I was like, I can't sleep here.
Are they alive or dead at this
Alive. Point? They're just everywhere.
You didn't just light a match and throw it into the
right?
room.
I should have.
What happened? I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I should have. It was horrible. And so I was like, I can't live here. I can't focus, study, all this stuff, right? And so I met a girl who lived off campus up a hill. rented for some local civilians. And she's like, actually, like the apartment next to mine is for rent. She's like, it's a good deal. I paid like $400 US a month and utilities, and there was a house cleaner 3 times a week that would come and like sweep and mop and clean the bathrooms.
You're back in the officers.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The only caveat is it was a mile from campus and literally like up this huge hill. I was like, fine, no factor.
Awesome.
Let's do it. So
Carried plane doors heavier than this. I'm
yeah,
fine.
it'll be fine. So I get some of the poor friends that I just met, these poor souls, volunteer to help me move my stuff. And so they're carrying like my roller bags and like all of my stuff like up this hill, and it just starts pouring rain. Like you don't even see it, and it doesn't make any sense. You look up and the sky is blue and you're just drenched. Like, where is the rain coming from? It's bizarre. And we get whatever, fine, get the stuff in my apartment. And then I'm trying to like focus. We have this test coming up. And then in the next 2 days, before my first big test in med school, I get a call from my boyfriend at the time, Brian, that Aaron's dad filed for full custody and was filing, a custody suit against me. I got served with papers. And then the next day, I got a call that my mom was in the hospital for a very serious thing that I won't discuss.
Yeah.
And I just broke down. And then the next day, I had my first test of medical school and I failed. Completely failed. And I just broke down. I was like, what am I doing here? I'm done. I don't belong here. This is a joke. I'm ruining my life. I'm ruining everyone else's life. I'm done. I'm in a third world country with cockroaches and monsoons or whatever. My daughter's being taken away from me. My mom's in the hospital. I can't do anything about anything. And it was just a disaster. I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't think I belonged there. I shouldn't have been there. So that was really hard to deal with. But to make a long story short, I talked to everybody and everyone told me to stay. And my now husband at the time helped me deal with all of the legal issues with my daughter.
And how long had you guys been dating at this point?
Like 8 or 9 months.
So at a point where, like, most guys would probably been like, I don't know if I'm wanting to do all this.
Yeah. Oh, actually.
Yeah, especially over distance.
Yeah. Well, before I left for medical school,
I love Brian.
I actually tried to break up with him twice. Love you, babe.
Because you didn't want him.
Because of that. Yeah, this isn't what he signed up for. So at the time, I had a really sweet deal. I was doing home health physical therapy assistant work. I was done by 3:30 every day, would pick my daughter up from school. I was making dinner every night, going to the gym. That's who he started dating. And then I'm like, hey, I'm going back to school in another country. And then I knew from that point, I knew I was going to medical school to be a surgeon. I was like, this is not an easy life you're signing up for. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's too late. I'm in it. And then like a week later, I tried to have the conversation again to be like, this is probably not the life for you, like, and he's like, that's not for you to decide.
Good man.
Yeah. And so I talked to everybody, everything got dealt with. My family took care of my mom. So I knew she was safe and everything was going to be okay. And I even talked to Erin, poor 6-year-old, and I asked her, do you want mommy to come home? I will come home if you tell me to. And she said, no, mommy, you need to be a doctor. At 6 years old. And so I stayed. So I went they had an amazing support at Ross University. They set me up with counseling and a tutor. And the counselor was extremely helpful because he just really helped me focus on what I could give my attention to, and what I could choose to separate myself from,
That's so awesome.
And the tutor really helped break down some of the concepts for me that I was struggling with, because studying for medical school is very different than anything I had to do prior. School before medical school was very easy for me. I just showed up and it made sense. I was very blessed, honestly. A lot of stuff just made sense.
You and Corey have always been like that at school. Like,
yeah, but medical school is different. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And I had to learn how to prioritize things and use my time effectively to really get these concepts in. And so that was just super helpful. And I went on, and fast forward 4 years, I ended up actually graduating with honors. So that first little test meant nothing.
Stunned by that news.
No.
Yeah.
But I could have given up so many times.
Yeah.
And I wanted to.
but you didn't let that first failure dictate what you were going to do.
Correct.
You took control.
Yep.
Reassessed, reprioritized, came up with a plan, and just started working the plan.
Correct. Yep.
And the plan wasn't perfectly executed because you had to make, changes and adjustments along the way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I learned a new way to study. I learned a new way to prioritize, and it worked out well. And then I matched. The match process for residency is a bizarre system in the United States. So when you graduate medical school, everyone's a doctor, right? But what kind of doctor are you going to be? You go to residency for your specialty training. And so how that works is a match process. And so it's kind of like speed dating-ish.
That's always worked out well.
Yeah.
I've been watching Love on the Spectrum. They tried the speed dating thing. I don't. That's my only frame of reference for it.
Yeah.
Slightly different.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And so you send out these applications to what specialty you want to go to. You get offered interviews. Our class was the last class before COVID that physically had to go to every interview. So I had to physically fly to 13 different hospitals around the country to interview.
Are you paying for all those flights?
Yes. And then since COVID happened the year after, and since then, everything's been virtual interviews. So now people don't have to fly around the country.
Oh.
Right? Because Zoom kind of reorganized how everything happens.
Must be nice.
No joke.
That line is for you, Josh Strasberger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all of those people get to save $5,000 not going to all of these interviews because they just turn on their laptop.
13 different cities that you're flying to.
That's
for
insanity.
Interviews. Plus hotel.
Plus hotel. Absolutely. Uber whatever,
or car rent.
food.
You did take out, did you have to take out a loan, or is this part of your student loans that
I
ends
did.
up like...
I used part of my student loans for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no doubt about it.
Yeah, it was insane. And you have to wear a suit, be dressed up the entire time, It's like a whole thing. So you go, you tour the hospital, you get all of these speeches from people, and then you go on these interviews. And it's not just a one interview. It's usually 5 in a row. And it's literally like speed dating. It's like you go out a door and you knock and you wait for them to bring you in, and then the clock starts and you have 15 minutes. And then somebody knocks on the door and you have to leave and then go to the next door.
Wow.
And then they grade you, and then they rank you. And then you rank the places that you interviewed at.
Okay.
And so then at the end of the interview season, you put your rank system into a computer, and then you have to lock it, and then you can't change it.
Really?
Yeah. And then they rank the applicants, and then this all goes into this computer algorithm to match up, and it's goes based off of, so it goes to my number one choice. If they matched me number one, it's a match. You both swiped right.
Wow.
And then it goes down the algorithm. So some people will be like, I matched, but I got my 10th choice, or I didn't match. And then they enter a scramble where people are fighting for free spots that didn't get matched.
If somebody doesn't match, is that kind of like a bad thing?
It is a bad
like
thing.
a bad sign, meaning that hey, our perspectives are just completely different of what you thought you want, what you think, what you want versus what we see, what we want.
I think so. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I know some people who were very good applicants, but they either did not interview well,
okay,
or they were unrealistic in their matching, in their rank system.
of what they wanted.
Correct.
Wow.
So, if you're only going to rank Ivy League places at the top, but you're not Ivy League,
Quality,
quality,
material,
whatever,
say,
right?
yeah.
Then that's pretty unrealistic.
Okay.
Or some people are really good on paper. They have the best test scores. So once you're in medical school, you take 3 more tests. The United States Medical Licensing Exam, USMLE, there's step 1, step 2, and step 3. Step 1, you take between your second and third year before you go on clinicals. So the first 2 years of medical school are all book, classroom. The third and fourth years are clinicals, doing rotations in the hospitals. Between that, you take the USMLE step 1. That gives you a score. And then in your third to fourth year, you take the USMLE step 2.
Okay.
And that's actually used to be a 2-part when I took it. Step 2, clinical skills and clinical knowledge. A written test, 9 hours. An in-person test, 9 hours. And
Good night.
yeah, it's a fun 2 days. And so I had to go up to Philly to take the clinical skills portion, and it's 13 patient rooms in a row. And it's a patient encounter, and these are like hired actors that would have some sort of pathology diagnosis, and then you have a time in there, you do your exam, you come out, and you have to get on a computer, put your differential diagnosis, what test you want to order, and like a note, and it's all like a timed thing and a character count. And so then that was the third exam, the step 2 CS. And then once you passed all of that goes to your application package for residency. And then once you're in residency, you take the USMLE step 3, and that is the final test to be an independent physician for your MD, like once you're an MD to be an independent physician. And then residency for general surgery is 5 years. For some places, it's 6 if they do a research year in between.
Did you originally want to do general surgery?
I originally wanted to do neurosurgery.
And what was your reasoning for switching?
So my reasoning for switching was actually, so when I did, sorry, Dr. Burke, if you're listening, but when I did my neurosurgery rotation, it was a lot more boring than I expected compared to the general surgery rotation. Now, don't get me wrong, neurosurgery is still fun. I still like to do some craniotomies every once in a while, but
Who doesn't love a craniotomy every now and then?
Yeah.
but it was
Plate operation.
like the same. It was a lot of spine surgery, which is really interesting, very, very helpful. But that and orthopedics, to me, it was a little monotonous. Personally, there's nothing against people who do that.
Yeah.
Just for me personally.
Is it because it's kind of the same type
Yes.
of surgery over
Yeah.
and over and over again?
Yeah, exactly. And some people love that, right? Perfect your craft. You know exactly what's going to happen. That's great. Why I loved general surgery and acute care trauma surgery is because it's different not only every day, but even within your day. So all in one day, I can remove a thyroid tumor, remove a breast mass, potentially cancer, depending on what it is. Can take out a gallbladder. You know, I could do a colon resection, take out an appendix, remove a tumor on your leg, or amputate it, whatever.
Gunshot wounds.
Gunshot wounds.
You've dealt with,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially
In
when
Maryland?
you did Baltimore, bro.
Baltimore.
What are you talking about?
That
Yeah.
was so stressful knowing that your little sister is like working out of those just ghetto hospitals, like not the hospital's ghetto, but the hospital's in the ghetto.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
like she's carrying, has her concealed carry because of just the threat of where she parks and going to the hospital and getting out. I'm just like, good Lord, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that's what really drew me to general surgery is the variety.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
So you're going through, so you obviously matched very well, like you said.
Yeah, I was really, really blessed where I matched. I interviewed at a wide variety of places from large university systems to community. And Anne Arundel is a nice hybrid where it's, technically a community hospital, but also it's integrated with university. It's a large hub in Maryland that is the highest volume of acute care and emergency surgery in the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And the residency is a very intimate one where you have a lot of one-on-one time with your attendings, which is unique, whereas larger universities, you're very detached from your teachers. And so I wanted that relationship. I wanted to be able to graduate in 5 years and be a qualified general surgeon and not be forced to do another subspecialty, which people get hooked into for general surgery. It's already 5 years of surgical training, very intense, 80 hours a week, every week, sometimes more. And at the end of that, you should be able to operate independently. But a lot of people end up subspecializing and doing another year in minimally invasive or robotics, or another year, maybe in breast, or another year in thyroids, or another year in this or that, or, and some you need to, say for pediatrics, surgical oncology, things like that, absolutely necessary. But to be a good general surgeon, you shouldn't have to do a fellowship. And so I really felt like I was going to get that at Anne Arundel, and I did. And then within that, we did do our specialty pediatrics, neonatal, burn, and transplant at Johns Hopkins, and then all of our trauma surgery at shock trauma in Baltimore.
What's a neonatal like?
Well, it's tiny babies.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, not necessarily from like the practical side of it, but like as a mom, just as a parent in general, right?
Yeah.
But like certainly like as a mom, what's the I guess process for detachment when you're going into dealing with a neonatal case?
Well, even one step deeper in the onion layer, I was pregnant when I did my pediatric surgery rotation. And
so she got married, is also pregnant,
Yes.
goes through all this while doing 80 hours a week of training.
And so when I was doing my peds, I was like 6-7 months pregnant. I was pretty preggo.
Yeah. So that not only makes things difficult on the physical aspect of it, but also on the emotional aspect and all of the biological things that are happening.
Exactly. And honestly, I actually felt guilty a lot of times. I feel bad that I would go into a NICU room, and looking at the mothers was heartbreaking because they know and I know that the baby inside of me was bigger than the baby that I was about to operate on.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Holy.
So,
Bro, we spent months in a NICU unit and seeing some of those, the baby that got brought in the last 2 days that Levi was in the NICU unit was 1.5 pounds. He was born at 24 weeks.
Yeah.
Like he would fit in the palm of your hand. There was more weight in the wires and the IVs that they had in him than the baby itself. And that's like not an exaggeration at all. That was just the reality of what those parents were going through.
Yep. So I would do bowel resections, remove intestines from babies that were smaller than the baby I was growing. And, in order to do the anastomosis or the connection of the intestines, the suture you're using and everything is so small that we would wear our loops, which are like glasses with magnifying glasses on the ends that we use for vascular surgery and endocrine surgery to see the tiny veins and nerves, but just to see the suture and get a better view on the intestines. And I would have to operate sideways.
Yeah.
Because my belly was too big.
Oh my goodness.
So I'd be like this.
Sure, that was great for just the human body.
Yeah, it
Staying
was
for hours doing that.
Yeah, it was rough actually. I fell down a lot because I would get so hypotensive. I had to wear like the tightest compression stockings and drink so much salt during the day to try to keep my blood pressure up. It was rough, but it was okay. Made it through.
But was that emotionally difficult for you to do?
Sometimes, yeah, but I really just had to work through, the detachment process. And, I think I've talked to JP about it before. It's not something you learn overnight. It really was a skill that I had to build and become more mindful of from medical school through residency, to recognize the fact that this is a very traumatic situation for this person and for their family, and it's heartbreaking. And there's times where it's just hard to not be in the moment emotionally for maybe this teenager who just got shot, or this baby who might die from this intestinal necrosis or something like that, but that I had to give myself that moment, but very quickly put myself back into the moment of being the surgeon and be present and objective, because they don't deserve, me to be emotional at the time. And there's a very fine balance of, you have to show emotion and show that you care, because you're a human being and they're a human being. And you can't be a robot, and you need to have good bedside manner and relate to the patients and the parents and whoever it might be on a human level. And that's one thing I always strive to do, is to talk to my patients like they're humans, right? But to also detach myself as the surgeon, that I have a job to do and this needs to be objective. Otherwise, you're going to get kind of a subpar person performing. And that's not fair to you and to the next patient. And so if this patient dies, I have to give myself the moment to accept it and give the next patient 100% of me, because it's not their fault that my last patient died.
That's got to be an impossible balance to try to find out some days, right? Especially with as a general surgeon, with the number and type of different cases that you see day in and day out. And like we were talking about the community that you were serving at that time in particular, and still, like, now you're working with the armed forces, and you're going to see a lot of just tough things, right? Is finding out how to be what you need to be in order to do your job without pulling yourself away from being compassionate about, those the fact that you're dealing with real people.
Yeah. And there's definitely been moments where I had to put myself into the office to give myself a minute. I've pulled myself into a stairwell or a bathroom when I felt the tears coming, and then had to get myself out of it and go back in the game.
Yeah.
Or you just hold it in until you're driving home and you're in the shower. It comes out eventually.
Yeah. And so have you found that over the years of just being exposed to just very traumatic things, have you found that the sooner you deal with it, address it, process it, the better?
Absolutely.
Because if you just try to hold on to it, like you said, eventually it will come out. It doesn't matter who you are or how much of a badass you think you are. Like, trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
And whether it's as a surgeon, police officer, firefighter, combat, just things that some people are exposed to growing up, like they're
social worker, dealing with all those things. Yeah, man.
Dude, I mean, or even like what kids deal with, like from abusive parents or aunts and uncles, or just, being molested or raped, or all these, like you cannot just hold on to things. So what has been some of the things that you've found that would help you dealing with that process? And, obviously having a supportive husband has definitely been something that it helps you out. But, what is something that you have done or you've learned or taught yourself to do to be able to like process trauma?
Yeah, I think, one thing is prayer is very important. And I think is a very underrated activity, and some people maybe say, I don't know how to pray. If you know how to talk, you know how to pray. It's not that complicated. And just talking, whether it's to God or to somebody. And those are two different things of doing it in the moment and then processing it later. So in the moment, I literally have a conversation in my head of, assessing like, wow, this 19-year-old is somebody's son, brother, right, whatever, and he just got shot up 18 times, and this is a disaster, to, okay, leave it alone. And literally your mind just has to shift, and you have to stay calm, because you cannot have your emotions and your frontal cortex, your amygdala and your frontal cortex can't operate at the same time. So you have to shut one off, and you're in control of that.
So are you saying that from hey, this is a biological, scientific thing? They cannot both be operating. That's why detachment is so important.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So if you find yourself and the emotions are flooding, you have to, basically mindfulness goes into the detachment. If you're not mindful of how your own body reacts to triggers, you won't be able to tell yourself to detach, because it's going to be too late. And then boom, you're in that emotional cycle, and it's hard to pull yourself out of it. But just practicing mindfulness sounds cheesy and very granola yoga, but it's really important, and it's helpful.
Pretty sure it's a biblical principle.
Yeah, self-awareness, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
it's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so it sounds funny, but I mean, I don't know. I just kind of talk myself through it on a regular basis, and you just have to tell yourself you're going to focus, keep yourself in it. Like every surgery you do 3 times, every procedure you do 3 times. Well, that sounds silly, right? But before you go into it, you know what you're doing, and you might not have a lot of time to prepare. Maybe it's a trauma, but while you're scrubbing in your mind, you're not talking, you're not texting, or at least for me, right? But I'm scrubbing, I'm thinking about, what am I going to do? What am I going to see when I get in there? What's my plan A, B, and C, right?
So visual preparation is
Correct.
what allows you to go in there in a logical state of mind.
Yeah. And I already have plan A, B, and C before I cut.
That's awesome.
And then when I cut and I see what I see, right, you deal with it as it comes, and you prioritize and you execute, right? It's the same thing in a trauma laparotomy. Somebody gets shot, stabbed a few times, wrapped around a telephone pole, they're bleeding internally. You have an inkling of what's going on, but you don't exactly know what's going on until you get in there. And so you have to detach from the emotions of all the alarms are going off, the nurses are asking you a million questions, anesthesia wants to do something, the scrub tech wants to do something, they're counting instruments in the background, somebody's mopping in the bathroom, something's happening over there. People are trying to get blood, and we don't have this medicine, and maybe the patient's screaming because they're not intubated yet. All these things are happening, but you have to focus on your job of what's going to happen next. And if you're not thinking, how am I going to fix this, the person's going to come crashing down. And so you have to go in there with the mindset of, with an objective plan, regardless of what's presented at you. So you have to know, all right, this is what's going to kill the patient first, and then I'm going to prioritize that. And I'm not going to get sidetracked with all these other little things, right? And so in surgery, that might be little vessels that are oozing, or this organ doesn't look right, and it sounds funny, but I just put a sponge on it, push it out of the way. I can't let that distract me from what's going to kill them, because that oozing vessel over there is not going to kill them. It's annoying. It's a little annoying because it won't stop bleeding, but I'm just going to not look at it. I'm just going to shove something on it and not look at it for a little while, because that's not what's killing them. It's going to be something in their retroperitoneum, is going to be their vena cava, their aorta, their liver, something like that's going to be going on. Their intestines might have holes, vessels need to be clamped, and so you just really have to focus on prioritizing what you're doing in that. And then slowly, then you do your 4 quadrants, and you kind of take your time systematically. And so even in the chaos, you have to be objective and calm to prioritize the patient and, all of that. Yes, you need to be oriented to what's going on, and you can't ignore everything, right? If anesthesia is struggling, you have to be aware of that. If the nurses are struggling, you have to be aware of that and kind of be a team player. But you just can't let yourself get distracted. And so that takes time. It doesn't happen right away. It happens from observing, from being patient, learning from your mentors, and it just takes time, patience.
That's awesome. We were talking about this the other night in the kitchen with you, Sarah, Brian, and I. I said Sarah. You, Sarah, Brian, Amanda, and I were talking about this, and it was cool. Like Brian brought up, he made the comment about understanding the perspective of like the bad day that you had.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it's not fair to your spouse, right? If you just say, "Oh, it was okay," or "Oh, it was a bad day," right?
Yeah. And because Brian's like, well, I don't know what a bad day means to her, and and it was, the example of like, oh yeah, like I dealt with a kid who was shot up and he died while I was working on him, and he had to go deliver the news to a parent, there's all these things, and it's just like, oh yeah, your bad day is a really bad day.
Yeah, it wasn't the Excel spreadsheet didn't save. I mean, that could be frustrating, but it's a different level, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's less stressful.
Because stress is stress
Yeah.
to each individual. Like trauma is trauma, but just being able to communicate with your spouse or your family members of, just the things that you're dealing with and processing, and maybe not obviously giving them all the details depending on who you're married to and or like the level, I guess, of maturity of your children. But, you being able to have these conversations with Brian has been helpful.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things you mentioned earlier about, talking about it quickly, and then also that like everything's going to come out at some point. Everything that you're holding on to is going to come out in some way, shape, form, or fashion. The faster you deal with it, the more control you have on how it comes out. that, you know, if you allow all of those things to fester and you just hang on to them and hang on to them and hang on to them, the less control you're going to have on how that is expressed, whether it's through anger and frustration, whether it's through like a mental breakdown or an emotional breakdown, or what that looks like. But the quicker you handle it, the more control you have over how you get to do that. And so, you know, you're talking about tools like obviously praying, talking to your spouse about these kinds of things. There is also that line of, you know, where does not just confidentiality, right? Because you get HIPAA laws and all those things you have to observe as a surgeon, but the details of like how much do you share, right? Like where do you get to the point where like, okay, I've communicated enough, because I think in my line of work as a pastor, there's confidentiality that's involved, but it's also there are intimate details that people share with me. Hey, you know what? We're struggling in our marriage. I might get the entire download of what's going on, where those struggles are, what the conversations and things have looked like. Those aren't things that I always communicate to Kirsten, right? If I say, hey, I've had a rough day, or man, today's been emotionally taxing, I talked with somebody that's, you know, they're struggling in their marriage, and I'm trying to help them work through those problems. And it was just tough because of that conversation. There are times, depending on, you know, what's going on, do we know the couple? Are we working? You know, am I talking with the husband? Is she talking with the wife? Those kinds of things where we might delineate more of that stuff. When it comes to you talking about it, and this is sort of in the case of like, I want to know you personally, but also as we've got people who are listening that are serving in the military, that are first responders. This is a question that a lot of them come up to me with, or that they ask about, is how do you determine what details to give and what details to keep to yourself?
That's a really good question. I think that's probably going to vary on the individual of what they need to, right? I guess I've always been more of an internal processor, so I'm a pretty bad, you know, person about telling stories. I will leave out a lot of details, and then I'll think about it later. I'm like, oh, I should have mentioned this. But also, I guess, you know, I usually will just give enough detail to get the point across of, oh, it was a really rough day because 3 patients died, and, you know, I had 40 patients on my caseload, or like whatever. Just like it's kind of almost, I keep it vague, I guess. Long story short, every once in a while I'll go into some details, but it is hard talking to someone, you know, not in the medical field to express how difficult something might be if they haven't really experienced it. So a lot of times we'll talk to maybe other coworkers or another surgeon who's there, and it's easier to say, oh, I was doing this, you know, cholecystectomy, and the bile duct was this, and I had an aberrant SMA and this and that, and they'll know exactly what I'm saying. Whereas if I say that, you know, to a spouse or somebody like that, they're going to be like, what? And then you spend more time explaining the details that distracts from the point of it was a hard case.
And then it becomes frustrating to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, granted, my husband's very patient, and he does a good job of listening and asking, but I guess because of that, I just kind of keep it vague, right? Because it's hard to express why it was stressful to me versus somebody else.
Brian's very good at listening.
Yeah.
With like really good intentions, and also asking good questions to like understand something. And he's very intelligent, like Sarah.
Yeah.
So like his ability to listen, ask questions, process is very impressive.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for the people who are listening, that like maybe you are the spouse of a first responder, or somebody who is in a field where they're a social worker, maybe they're a therapist or whatever, and they say that they've had a bad day. Like one of the things that you have to learn how to do, we talk about this a lot when you're talking about building relationships, is that they're based off of trust, respect, listen, right? Is learning how to just be quiet. I'm terrible at it. Right? I think and JP's laughing because he knows, like, if there's more than like 2 seconds of silence, I'm like, somebody better talk. Like, I need to tell a story, right? It's just the extrovert in me that's there. But the truth is when we're being a good friend and we're taking care of the people that are around us, one of the things we have to do is to learn to listen. And there's some of those details we may want the answer to, right? Like, I don't know what a whip stitch is, but I've heard a few people talk about it, right? I saw it on an episode of Grey's Anatomy, so I know it exists. But it doesn't matter whether or not I know what that detail is as much as it does that I'm being present with that person as they're talking about that thing.
Yeah.
And that's a really important piece of it, is that, there are times where it's appropriate to ask a question out of curiosity, and other times where as you build a relationship with somebody, you learn, hey, you know what? They just, the last 5 minutes, I didn't keep up with anything that they said, but it's obvious they got more talking to do. So yeah,
I'm here.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And that's very helpful when people can do that. And one thing that I've started doing now that I'm in the attending role and the supervisor role is debriefing, in the moment, and trying to be more cognizant and recognizing when it might be a difficult situation for somebody else, because maybe I have a medical student and this is the first time they've seen a traumatic situation. And hey, do you want to talk about it? How did this situation make you feel? And kind of go from there.
Yeah, that's good to have that awareness. Shifting focus real quick. So definitely want to just, I think it's always cool to like share this when people are married. Like, how did you and Brian like meet? And like what was that situation? And then do you have like a fun memory or a story from like when you were dating that you're like, oh, this might be more than just me dating somebody?
Yeah. So we met at a gym.
Nice.
Yeah. So 24-hour fitness, it's no longer there.
Oh.
Womp womp.
I know, right? But yeah, he was just one of the normal guys who was willing to just like say, hey, and how you doing, and have a conversation, and wasn't trying to be annoying and cut in, and
That's cool.
gave me his number, and we ended up texting for a while. And then I was very forward with him on my time restraints, and was kind of like, hey, I have, if you want to hang out, I have like Monday night from like 7 to 9. Let me know. That's what I got. Take it or leave it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And prior to that, I had, I was single for like a year, and I was just getting back into the dating game. And I had gone on a few terrible first dates. There's some weird people out there, guys. Stay sharp. Just keep on your toes. There's some weirdos. And so in our like texting and getting to know him, I kind of brought up some things that other guys said that bothered them. Like one guy said it bothered him that I rode motorcycles, or that I had tattoos, or that I was in the military. I'm like, does any of this stuff bother you? And he's like, no, I prefer it. Like, why would that bother me?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not insecure. I was a Marine, also in
Exactly.
law enforcement, and doing this currently. So
Exactly. So we just meshed right away. It was great. Went on a few dates, and it was just easy to talk to, really got along well. He was always, very mindful of my time, and, me wanting to very slowly introduce him to my daughter and things like that. He was very respectful of that, which is great. And so I knew that he was going to be a good guy, and we just got along very well.
and him and Aaron.
Great. Yep. Got down, started playing with her, riding bikes, things like that right away. Brought over his dogs to meet my dog and things like that. So that was fun. And we were hanging out with my neighbor at the time, and she had a few kids, and then her friend brought, and there was just like kids everywhere, right? It was chaos. And I remember he was just sitting there, sipping on a drink, totally chill. And I was like, sorry if this is like chaos for you. He's like, it doesn't bother me. I come from a family of 11.
Bruv.
11. He's one of 9 children.
Wow.
And so
Where does he fall in the lineup?
He's the oldest boy, second. So second oldest, but the first boy.
So he like helped raise
Exactly.
7 kids. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So he was so not bothered by the chaos of all the kids. He's like, I thrive in chaos. So that was good. And yeah, just a really good, genuine guy. He was a Marine and in law enforcement, and very, very smart. Did really well. And I tried to break up with him, and he said no. you don't know what you want, basically. And then when I was in medical
Amanda did
school,
that to me also.
yeah, I told him to not propose to me in the Caribbean in medical school. I said, don't do it. And he was basically like, you don't know what you want. And he proposed to me on the beach in the Caribbean.
That's rad.
And it was awesome. And he,
You really got to know the person if you're
Yeah.
going to tell them that they don't know what they want.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he planned everything amazing. He was like, had like a side, text with my friends in medical school and set everything up. And it was so intricate that like I thought he was coming on a Saturday. I had a test, or on a Friday night I had a test, and he was going to come that night, and we're going to spend the weekend hanging out before I started my next block of classes. Well, long story short, he ended up flying in a day early. I had no idea he was on the island. He was like texting me, and he was already in the Caribbean, and I thought he was like still in Maryland, and was like, oh, my phone's not working. Like set up this whole thing for like a week leading up to it that his phone wasn't working very well, so that he could like, not respond to me and have the text not go through and stuff, so I wouldn't be suspicious, and set it up so after every big test, me and my group of friends would go down to the beach. It was horrible, I know. And
This is a rough life.
yeah, and drink some coconuts and
Must be nice.
Yeah,
walk.
there's no electricity at the
Yeah.
beach. Hey, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Dumbass beach boy.
Yeah.
Yep. And but this particular, normally it was every time it was straight after the test, go straight to the beach. That's what we would do. But for some reason, this particular Friday test, I decided to go to brunch with a different group of friends. And then somebody there had a thing, and I took her to the doctor's office and then came back. And that group of friends that was waiting at the beach with Brian hiding in a bush with a ring for like 3 hours. Well, I'm on the other side of the island having like brunch, and I have no idea he's there. And he's like, no, don't rush her. It'll sound suspicious. So I show up, not showered or anything, just like in a bathing suit and shorts or something like that. Or I don't even think I had shorts on. And I'm like, I'm ready, let's go. And I grabbed 2 beers and run into the ocean.
Fresh
And-
off brunch.
Yeah, it's a true story. He's still hiding in a bush somewhere.
Right.
I grabbed 2 beers, run into the ocean, and my friends are like, oh my gosh, Sarah, you're so embarrassing. Let's take a picture. We haven't had a group picture in like a semester. So they set it up so we have like a group picture. And I remember one of my friends at the time, she's like, oh, do you want to put your clothes back on first? I was like, nah. Why would I do that?
Well, I'm on the beach. Like, that's weird.
Yeah. And I still remember her. She's like, oh, well, do you want to? I was like, nah, I got 2 beers and a bikini. What else do I need?
All of life's essentials are right here.
I mean,
And we line up to take this big group photo. And one of my friends had his buddy like take professional photos of us. And then you see in this sequential photos of Brian running up behind us on the beach, like running low, like coming out of the bushes.
What a
and
legend.
yeah. And I'm just standing there like, geez, like being an idiot. And then I get a tap on my shoulder, and I think it's my buddy on the other side. I'm like, stop, like hitting my shoulder. And then all of a sudden, like everybody disperses, and I still feel the tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Brian on one knee in the sand, like
yes.
magical. And he's saying some probably very lovely things to me, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Totally ruined it.
Pouring your beer on him.
Yeah.
I did not drop the beers. I know. And I was like, is this a new shirt? And he's like, I'm trying to say something here.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was awesome. So that was like epic that he just like put that all together. And
well done, Brian.
Yeah.
yeah.
All the other guys listening that are thinking about
Good
getting
luck.
engaged, they're like, dang it.
Yeah. Yep.
Or they can be inspired and do something awesome like Brian did.
I think that's the route they should go. Do
Yeah.
something awesome.
Do something awesome.
Yeah.
Like Sarah has her whole life. All right. So that's an awesome story. Thank you. And so you guys get married while you're going through residency.
In medical
Or-
school,
No,
actually.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's right. You get married
Before.
in medical school,
Yep.
and then in residency, you have Micah.
Yep.
He's awesome. He's
Yeah.
2.
Yep.
And he is full of just life and energy, and he is so intelligent, and it's shocking. It's not shocking to me at all. Like knowing Sara and Brian, and it's really cool how Erin interacts with Micah, and she's such a good big sister. And
She's great.
Just so loving. That's awesome.
Man, that toddler life is rough, though.
Oh man,
The
he's a
2-year-olds,
firecracker.
like, they're absolutely amazing.
Yep.
But nothing is safe.
They're amazing little terrorists.
They are.
I mean, just straight up like
Full on.
But
There's
then they'll
two
kiss
ways
you.
about it. Yeah, exactly. Right? Like, yeah, Scotty's been, he's had a little bit of a cold. And so he's like wanting to be really snuggly and then also wanting his space at the same time. So he'll like come right up to you and be like, hold me. And then just immediately scream afterwards, like, I need space. It's like, okay, great. And then he'll come up and you're like trying to wipe his nose because it's just everything on that face is wet. And then, give you a kiss and you're like, that's disgusting, but it is so sweet. Yeah. Let me wipe your nose and then go shampoo my beard.
All right, so we talked about Brian. I mean, this whole episode has been awesome.
Yeah.
So I was laughing.
Stuff now.
Yeah. So I was laughing when she was talking about rugby because I have a funny story. When I was in my first platoon, we're on the road. Single team guy on the road. You're out, having some drinks, the guys, and our thing on the road was like we wouldn't tell girls that we met that we were SEALs. We would make up jobs, and it was usually like we're a rodeo clowns for a rodeo that's coming into town, rugby team or a skydive team. Right, and so those are like the 3 like stories or whatever. So I'm in a platoon. we're on Beale Street in Memphis, Tennessee, and like we're talking to these group of girls, and like, oh, what do you do? We say rugby team, blah blah blah, and I'm like. And then one of the girls was just like, oh, really? Like, what position do you play? Like, I play rugby. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And I was like, well, I'm going to go get a drink. And I went to go get a drink, and I text Sara, and I told her what was going on. She goes, I'm not helping you. She's like, I'm not helping you.
I should have told you to tell her you were the hooker.
Yeah. She's just like, I'm not helping you in this. I'm like, dang it. All right.
Yeah, that's the perfect sister response.
Well, it wasn't like you didn't have Google on your phone at the time, so it's not like I could look up stuff. I was like,
on your BlackBerry Pearl with the jog button the jog.
I didn't even have that. I had the Razor at the time, which I loved that phone. So, anyways, that's why I was laughing earlier when she was sharing rugby stories. But all right, so current. So you graduate, and now when was the transition? Like, hey, I want to become an officer. Back in the Air Force.
This is what I want to know.
Yeah.
How did you end up
So let's go from that transition to like current day what you're doing.
You just miss the room clean 3 times a week?
Yeah, I was like, I haven't been punished enough. Let's go back into the military. So it was, when I left the Air Force enlisted, it felt kind of like an incomplete way that I left because it wasn't when I planned to leave. Again, love my daughter, Erin, best thing that happened in my life. But that was kind of the transition out of the Air Force. And I still felt like I wanted to serve. But I, like I said before, I went to medical school. I was even considering going back in as an intel officer just to use my degree. But fast forward in residency. So, I was thinking of going back in pretty much right away when I secured my residency spot. But at the time, Brian and I were unsure if it would be a good commitment or not because it would be 5 years in residency, so then a 5-year commitment afterwards. And at the time, they did not have any general surgery slots for the critical wartime ascension bonus. And so financially, it really would have taken a hit of what I could have earned in the civilian sector versus not, which is not the primary reason for doing it, obviously. But after you put yourself through 13 years of pain, you want to at least be able to pay off your school loans.
Well, yeah, it's a valid part of the calculus. Like that is a part of the calculus for sure, especially when you're not single and you've got kids, married. Like these are things that you actually have to put into the calculus.
Yeah. And there was kind of some uncertainty with Brian changing jobs at the time as well. And so I was like, I've kind of been selfish and put my career first. I got what I wanted. I got my surgery residency. I got where I wanted. So I'm not going to be greedy, I guess, and try to keep going at the time. But then fast forward a couple of years and kind of things changed in terms of like he was more stable and secure. Not that he was ever unstable, but where he wanted to be in his career, I guess, to where it would have been okay if we needed to move if I went on active duty. And there were general surgery slots available again. So there's only 78 general surgeons in the Air Force. And so they can't, just take anyone. And so there's only a certain amount of slots. Some years there will be no slots available. Some years there will be a couple. I think the year that I applied, there was I think he said 15 people for 2 slots in the entire country. And so I didn't tell really anyone that I was applying to go back in because it wasn't just a guarantee. I had to go through a selection process for one of those 2 slots. And I had to be interviewed and everything. And then you have to get a congressional appointment to be an officer and stuff like that. And so it was a process to make sure I was approved first. And then once I finally was like, you're approved and you went through the whole process, obviously I had to also go back through all of the medical and dental, vision, stuff like that. And once it got approved, then I signed the contract. I signed the contract at the end of my 3rd year. And that's when I was pregnant with Micah. So funny segue into that. I won't take too much time on it, but we wanted to get pregnant for about 4 years and it just wasn't God's timing. And we finally came to terms with that we were going to have Erin, and she's a blessing. And okay, that's, we weren't going to have another child. And in a 1-week time period, when we finally were like, all right, 4 years, it's good to go. We booked a all-inclusive trip to Jamaica. It's like a couple's trip. And we both bought new cars all in the same week. I traded in my car for a ridiculous lifted truck with like a 6-inch lift and mud tires. And he traded in his SUV for like a super fast S8 that holds like 2.5 people. I mean, it holds 4 people, but it's not.
Yeah, it holds 2 people and their golf clubs.
Yeah,
That's what it's meant for.
Neither of these vehicles are family vehicles, long story short. And then the next week found out I was pregnant. Literally 1 week later. It's like, that's good. And I had already signed my contract for the Air Force when I thought I was going in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, cool. So now I'm going to go in and have a kid, and I'm keeping my monster truck.
As you should.
Yeah. So that was funny. So I was pregnant with Micah when I swore in as an officer, actually. I just wore a poofy dress.
Look at you go.
Go, girl.
Yeah, but it was cool. One of my attendings...
So you're 37-ish at this time? 38?
I guess, yeah. I was 37.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just wanted to bring that up
Yeah.
because a lot of people put age as a limitation for going and being able to go do something or serve in the military or something. It's like, actually, you can find a way.
That's true.
You can find a way.
Even if you've just had a geriatric pregnancy, you can do that.
She hadn't yet. She's in the process.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, to any, what is it, 35?
After
is like
35, yeah.
I've told my wife all of her pregnancies have been a geriatric pregnancy for me because
Yeah.
I've been over
Oh,
35.
for you.
Yeah, for all of them.
Not for her.
Oh, because everybody's now like, oh, y'all are pregnant. We're pregnant. I'm like, it's a geriatric pregnancy.
That's
for me.
hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I turned 30 in medical school. I was 37. And so I was like, yeah, let's do this. Brian agreed. We went through everything. When I was having my interviews and talking with the advisor for the general surgeons, and going through the whole process of, okay, how does this work for matching up with, a hospital and things like that. I had on speakerphone so Brian could like understand the whole process, right?
Smart.
Just want to make sure we're on the same page with everything, full transparency, which is super important in marriage,
Yup.
especially during all these career changes and things, because it affects him just as much as me.
Yep.
And when they came out with a list of available, duty stations, this was just another huge God thing, blessing. There was not one in Baltimore on the list. The closest to where we live was Andrews Air Force Base, which is about a 45-minute drive, doable. Otherwise, all of the other open duty assignments were across the country, some in other parts of the world. And so we went through every single duty station and went through how would that affect my career, how would that affect his career, going through all of these logistics together. And then eventually we agreed on our rank list. And so we had to rank all of the available duty stations and submit that and then wait to hear back. And then there was a meeting with like an information session with the advisor for the general surgeons about a week before the kind of rank list was closing. And he gave more information on all the duty stations of, hey, this is what you can expect at this MTF, which is a military training facility and things like that. And this one's outpatient, inpatient, which ones have civilian partnerships and don't, and just how it'll affect you as a surgeon, right? As well as your responsibilities as an Air Force officer. And he's like, does anyone else have any other questions? And I kind of asked him, had like a side combo with him and asked him, hey, like I know that Walter Reed Bethesda wasn't on the list, but is there anything else in that area that might have an Air Force slot coming up that maybe wasn't on the list? And
It's a good question to ask.
yeah, because I know that there were some Air Force surgeons at Bethesda at least, and he said, well, right now there aren't any general surgery slots there, but there is a possibility if you get selected at Andrews that you could do like 2 days a week if you wanted to do like colorectal or breast clinic stuff up at Walter Reed Bethesda. I was like, okay, that could be a good compromise. He's like, but I don't know if you'd be interested or if you've heard of this C-STARS program at Shock Trauma in Baltimore. I said, well, yes, I have. I did like total of 6 months between med school and residency at Shock Trauma in Baltimore. And so I was very familiar. So their C-STARS program is a civilian military partnership with the Air Force and Shock Trauma, which is like one of the #1 training trauma hospitals in the country. And it's the first military-civilian partnership for over 20 years and the largest in the Air Force still running today. And it's the Center for Sustainment, Trauma, and Readiness. And what that assignment is a dual billet. And so you are a instructor with the School of Aerospace Medicine under the Air Force Research Laboratory Command and the Human Performance Wing, part of the research for the Air Force. And then you are also a surgeon or whatever you're, maybe anesthesiologist, respiratory therapist at the hospital. And so when I did my rotations there, I met with some of these, and I did vascular surgery there, trauma surgery there, and met with some of the Air Force docs. And they kind of talked to me a little bit. I didn't really know what their instructor job was. I just knew that they were there for the Air Force. So I didn't fully understand what that part of the job was yet. But I said, yes, I'm familiar. And he said, well, I don't know. There might be an opening coming up. There might be somebody retiring, and you might be able to like take his slot. I was like, oh, he's retiring. Oh, yeah, replacing a colonel. No pressure. So I wouldn't be taking over his role like as a colonel, obviously, but his role of a general surgeon.
Jeez. Could you explain just that difference between like your current role and rank and what a general kind of background would be and kind of?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a captain. I'm an 03. And then a full bird colonel is an 06, which is the highest most physicians can get to and still work clinical. Above that is you're becoming a general, which is more of just a like Pentagon administrative role. And so he's a bigwig guy, great guy. And so I interviewed with, so it was a while, long story short, it was many more months than anticipated to wait to find out that I got this billet because he wasn't sure if it was going to be open. He said, put it on your list. if you'd be interested, and asked me if I would be interested in teaching, and said, yes, I love teaching and things like that, and that'll be great. Put it on there. Everyone else was finding out in like February where they're getting assigned for their duty stations. Graduation is in June, and this involves like potentially moving across the country. We could have gone to Nebraska, literally, that was on the list, Florida, like all of these places, and we didn't find out for sure until May. This was like so stressful. And honestly, Brian and I would potentially have like little arguments sometimes about it, to be honest with you, of like this is stressful. Like this affects him and our family. And then one day we were walking and we just prayed about it. And we're like, we just need to be patient with each other and with God, and we will be where he wants us to be. And we will be at peace with it because we've both kind of given up our control of it, right? We've both agreed upon this, prayed about it, and it's in God's hands. And stressing about it is not going to fix the problem. And then once we both kind of agreed on that and had that conversation, within a few days, I got the email that I was going to Baltimore.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So you just have to be patient with God,
Or rather that you're not going to Baltimore, because you guys kind of get to stay where you're at.
Oh, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like 30 minutes from where we currently live. So graduated residency in June. July, I went to officer training in Alabama.
What was that like as a, we'll just say, experienced human?
Yes, now 39. Not 40 yet.
Yeah, coming up.
Yep,
But
yep.
anyways,
It's not as bad as they say.
Yeah.
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 I'm like 6 weeks into it.
but you're
Nice.
39, and what's about the average age of all these other individuals that you're going through this training
25.
with? Yeah.
25, most of them, yeah. None of my roommates were in their 30s.
My roommates.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long was that training?
9 weeks.
What was the worst part of it?
Marching.
Okay. What was the second worst part of it? I mean, you're in Alabama in the summer.
Yeah,
It
Alabama
sucks.
in the summer. It was hot. The first week we got there, they're like, this is like record heat and humidity. I'm like, that's great. But what really helped me is Little Calico whipped beef tallow.
Yep.
That's what I'm talking
After
about.
sun, I'd never peeled. Just saying. Don't
Yep.
want to steal your thunder later.
No,
No,
but-
you're good.
Now we don't even have to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
It was
Boom,
amazing.
done. Take it off the list.
Yeah. But
Go to littlecattle.co.
exactly.
Get
yeah.
it.
No, it was, in the moment, it was frustrating being there. And it was really me just being in my own head of, why am I here for 9 weeks? This is ridiculous. I could be operating. And instead I'm like, right flank, Harch. What? This is ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, what plane are you going to do that on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of really good lessons. And once you kind of got past the BS, so to say, that you have to do for military indoctrination, because not everyone there was prior service, right? So, of
Yeah.
course, they have to learn the military ways. There's some really good lessons on leadership. Taking ownership, all of that was integrated. We did some really cool field training exercises. We got to play around with little airsoft M16s. It was super fun. Went out into the field and got to shoot people up. And
cool.
I got to lead several of the missions. People started like requesting me to be on their team, which was fun. And yeah, we did some really cool like leadership experiential things where you would have these kind of physical puzzles behind you that you couldn't look at. And then you would have your team and the buzzer would go off and you would have 15 minutes to execute. And then you would get handed a cue card of what the mission was. And then you would turn around and see the physical obstacle and have 15 minutes to execute. And you would take turns kind of being the commander and being the followers. And then as the commander of like the mission, you would get graded on a lot of different things. You would get graded on your communication, on your delegation, right? On your resource management. Are you using all the supplies given to you? Are you using all of your people that are given to you, and knowing their skills and knowing your people and using those people appropriately for the mission, things like that. And obviously execution.
That's awesome. Did you like the combative side?
Combatives was fun. Yeah. So we did Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
That was fun. Yep.
But I loved getting those texts from you and the family group text. You're like, got a little bit of combative training. This was,
Yeah.
I now get why you like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. I can shrimp with the best of them.
Yeah.
Get those hips off the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
So that was fun. And then now I'm in Baltimore, and so my role is a dual billet. So like when you know, not that you would, but like if you look on your kind of Air Force portal of your assignments and stuff, my first assignment is instructor with the School of Aerospace Medicine, and then my second assignment is surgeon. And so I operate and I'm a surgeon at the Baltimore VA. And then I teach at Shock Trauma Sea Stars. It's a comprehensive medical readiness course for Air Force providers, med techs, respiratory therapists, paramedics, nurses, physicians, PAs. And it's a pre-deployment mission readiness course that they go through to learn disaster kind of, management, trauma management, things like that, battlefield medicine. It's a 2-week course. And they come through and it's fully immersive. And so when they come in, we divide them into teams. We have lectures on burn, kind of, TBI management, damage control resuscitation, things like that. And then we have a cadaver lab going through physical procedures. That's one of the things I like to do, obviously being on the surgical side. And then a really amazing sim lab that is very immersive. The cadavers can do, the simulators can do everything you can think of, from blink, dilate their pupils, cry, sweat. They have vessels everywhere that we can make bleed. They have pulses everywhere. Their lungs can operate independently if we want to give, asynchronous respiratory situations, heart, their bladder. They can do Foley catheters. They can do central lines. They can do lines on the arms. We can change around the limbs to put on amputations and things like that. It's very, very involved, and all of the machines are set up in a trauma bay, very realistic. It's the exact same machines used in the trauma bay upstairs. And so you actually have to intubate them properly. You actually have to set them up to the machines properly or it won't work. And they'll get that feedback. Yeah. And so they get kind of a progressive training, without giving away too many details, of starting kind of with a basic like one patient scenario to like a cumulative event where they have a mass casualty. And
I know you can't get into too many of the details, but when we were talking like about it, is there anything that you can share from like just like what you do as an instructor to add stress and then like to teach your like, would you call them students? Yeah, teach your students to detach and to prioritize and actually look around and be like, hey, you're worried about this, but that's actually not the problem.
Yes.
All the way from like the little things, like you said, like power goes out, lights, all that stuff. And, oh, hey, you're doing all this stuff, but you forgot to hook up the machine.
Exactly. Yes. So, attention to detail, right? And so all the other instructors do a really good job of this too. Obviously, I'm one of the newer instructors, so I'm learning from them. But what's great about going through 5 years of surgery training, you're instructing other residents and students the whole time. So you have that. But yeah, they go through and you give them a kind of briefing ahead of time and orient them with everything so they know, hey, what you see is what you get. It's not due to the sim not working. If you're not getting the feedback you think, you need to check yourself and check your machine, because it will work if you do it properly. And it's amazing how many times we tell people that and they still will assume something's not working because it's the simulator. And we're like, we told you very clearly, if the patient's heart rate is not coming up, it's not because the sim's not working. It's because you gave them the wrong medicine or you didn't hook up something properly.
And that just shows the natural tendencies of humans is not to take ownership.
Yeah.
Oh, it couldn't be what I did. It clearly is the machine. And you're like, no, actually, you didn't do the right thing.
Correct. Yeah. We had a scenario where somebody hooked up the leads in the wrong position, and so we weren't giving them the vital signs because they didn't hook it up properly, and they went almost an entire iteration with just ignoring the fact that the patient didn't have vital signs because they assumed it was the machine. And we even would give them little hints like, check your patient, check your machine, And they didn't check that the leads were totally in the wrong position. And so they just entire time didn't get vital signs and blamed it on the machine. And so then we have debriefs about things like that. Like, no, you guys need to take this seriously, right? Like, and if you don't do it correctly here, what makes you think you're all of a sudden going to do it correctly there, right? You're going to fall back to your lowest level of training.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just also a testament to like stress, you know, when people get stressed out, if you're not, like you were saying earlier, all these things have been skill sets that you've had to develop. And so you're teaching people the skill set of detachment, of actually take a breath, like literally breathe, look around, see what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, ignore the external noises.
100%. And so what's great is while we're going through these scenarios, the instructors, we're in the room, but stepped back and observing what they're doing. And we're mic'd up and we can tell the control room, hey, they did this correctly, or they hung this fluid or whatever. And then they can control the monitors and the not the cadavers, I keep saying cadavers, the simulators to respond appropriately.
What type of security clearance do I need to come in and just create havoc on one of those simulators? To just be in that room with a headset on and be like, all right, watch out, this one's going to squirt. We're going to squirt her.
There's blood everywhere. Oh my gosh, there's blood.
Yeah.
I already thought about that. I'm like, man, do you guys allow
That's all I want to do.
observation?
All I want to do is to just work the buttons that create chaos.
Oh, you want to be on that?
Yeah, I just want to be on the simulator and be like, okay, which lung needs to breathe faster than the other one? And just like this isn't in the medical books. No, it isn't.
The operators are very skilled, very skilled.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah,
like the training to be able to do that.
Yeah, they take their jobs very seriously, and those mannequins are like their babies.
Yeah, I would imagine they'd have to.
Yeah, they take a very good job. They do like the moulage. They set up everything so realistic. They put them in clothes.
Rad.
Like you have to go in and like cut off the clothes. So like they put different clothes on them, and we'll give different scenarios. Like, you know, these people got ejected from this. These people got blasted with this or whatever. And they'll get like a quick briefing. But we make it very realistic. There's a speaker in the background, and it's blasting. Like you're in a combat zone, there's helicopters landing, and the helicopter gets louder and louder as the patients are coming in. And then all of a sudden they bust through the doors, and we pull down the sheets, and here's your patient. And we're like, who's taking report, you know, and to go through it. And
That's
then
cool.
after we finish, then we come out, and then the helicopter kind of fades away. And then they're going through the scene, and they have to call to the TOC. They have to call to command to ask for things. If they don't ask properly, we don't give it to them. If they forget to ask for something, we don't. And sometimes we'll have role players come in, be like, oh, you asked for this person's coming in, but if you're not ready for them, they're going to leave again, you know. X-ray, they have to ask for X-rays, labs, things like that, and then we'll pop it up, and we'll populate actual labs of what would happen if they didn't give the blood in time, or what would happen if they forgot to give the calcium with the blood, things like that. And then next thing you know, we're getting attacked, right? And then power goes out, lights go off, bombs are going off, the sounds get louder.
That's all super cool.
Chaos.
I volunteer as a role player.
Yeah.
Just whenever.
I was, yes.
It's
Yeah,
great.
same.
And then we debrief, and that's the most important part, right? The debrief. And we do a group debrief, and then we do a like separate AFSC like job debrief. So I debrief with the physicians. Most of them, 9 times out of 10, are not surgeons, and then, you know, nurses will debrief with nurses, techs with techs, et cetera, right? Which is good because there's some things as a group you can talk about, and that's like, how did this make you feel? What is your takeaway from this scenario? And that's what
How'd
we're
you work
talking
together
about
as a
as a
team
group.
kind of thing?
Correctly,
Yeah.
exactly. How's your team dynamic this time? Because we keep them in the same team from day 1 to day 12.
No, that's right.
And so they can build that. And we encourage them, go out to dinner. Here's a government van. Go to dinner, get to know each other so you flow better, mesh together, you know?
Yeah.
And then we have this separate, you know, one-on-one with the physician or a PA or an NP.
Deal with the minutia. Of this
Exactly. Of, you know, and so that's been the good part of from beginning to end, maybe having a more timid family medicine PA or family medicine doctor who's not comfortable with trauma and chaos. And we're throwing them in this scenario, and they're the OIC, they're the officer in charge, and they have to step up. And that's something that makes them uncomfortable. Yes, you're a physician, but now you have to be an OIC in a trauma situation. That's very uncomfortable for somebody who's normally in an office. And letting them recognize that and talk through that and kind of giving them some feedback and seeing how they progress along the way is really, really cool.
Now, I know, like, as we've talked over the years, if you doing all this stuff, like, the military in general does a good job teaching leadership, you know, and obviously you've had a lot of classes and courses and on-the-job training of like what good leadership looks like and what bad leadership looks like and how to address and move through it. But I also know you've been to the muster before.
Yeah.
And so how has some of the things that you learned and or were reiterated to you from coming to the muster and reading, extreme ownership and dichotomy leadership and leadership strategy and tactics, like how have some of those things been beneficial to you, and what have you taken from that to implement into like what you've done and what you're now currently doing also as an instructor?
Extremely helpful. So I think I've been to 3 or 4 musters, and I've read all the books, listened to JP Dinnell podcast, Jocko podcast. Started listening to Jocko podcast in medical school, and it's been extremely helpful. And some of the key takeaways that I've tried to implement, and it's been very helpful. And then now teaching to other people is several points, but detachment, of course, decentralized command is very helpful, and prioritize and execute is paramount, especially in surgery and in trauma. Oh my gosh! And then the stop, look around, make a call, things like that, right? Super important, and just being mindful of that and kind of reiterating it that it's not easy, but it is simple. And we talk about that a lot, and making sure everyone's on the same page, right? Everyone knowing their why and having that kind of established in the beginning is important. And so I try to teach to whether it's a new surgeon, a new doctor, or someone who's been a doctor for 10 years, but now they're coming to this new trauma training, right? And mass casualty training, and they're scared, and their way of wanting to do a good job is they want to be in it. And that's like the first instinct of a lot of them is they want to be in it, doing the work and doing the CPR and doing the things. But like you can't always do that, especially when you're in a mass casualty situation. You can't be the one pounding on the chest when there's 5 other guys over there that need help. And so you have to detach. You have to take a step back. You have to look around and make a call because everyone needs you when you're the officer in charge. And you can't let yourself get immersed in this one thing and get so focused that you just get tunnel vision. And so you have to take a step back so you don't get tunnel vision. And being able to do that, and you're aware of everything, but you're also just a little bit detached from it so you can see the big picture is super, super important.
That's awesome. You shared with me the other day when we were talking, and it was such a cool thing. I was like, man, I really want us to talk about this on the podcast, is you just understanding how your role has shifted and you're not an E5 in the military anymore. And she's now an O3 and she has to be careful about the things that she says, not like in a negative way, but just so share the story of like you made just a casual comment.
Yeah.
And this is a really cool thing about just understanding the power of being in a leadership position with a legitimate rank, like a legitimate rank in the military.
There's no O3 mafia. Is that what you're trying to say?
Listen, you're going to love this story.
Well, yeah, I guess both of them were kind of part of the E4, E5 mafia, right? One was I was brand new in the unit, and I had asked a tech sergeant for help with something. And just kind of like casually, because the civilian person who was helping me had gone home or whatever, and asked her, and she had already left, and I didn't like think anything of it. And then she like texted me back at 7:00 at night or something like that, and was like, "I'm so sorry, Captain Parmiter. Let me get on my computer right now. I just got around to this," and I had already figured out whatever it was. And I was like, "Oh, no, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal." And she's like, "Oh, I had to feed my daughter dinner." I was like, "It's okay." I was like, "I am so sorry to bother you." And it wasn't until like a few weeks later I thought about that situation again. And I was like, I have to be really careful about what I ask and from who, because that actually wasn't just me being like, "Hey, when you have a second, can you help me?" That was an officer asking an enlisted to do something. And that's how she took it. And that's a big responsibility that I have to be careful about who I ask for help. And instead I need to stay also like within and up my chain of command. I need to ask my partner, who's also a captain or a major, right? Like I need to talk to those people about things, not the staff and tech sergeant who's going to be like, "Oh, this officer is asking me to do something."
I was just given a command.
Literally.
Not a request. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, oof, that's very different, you know, and you kind of have some of that as transitioning into being the surgeon of like, oh, if I ask for somebody for like an instrument that I like to use during my surgeries, I met the new charge nurse. She was like, oh, make me a list and I'll order it. What?
Dang.
It's bizarre.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then another was we're getting ready to have a meeting, but before like the group meeting, which there's only 32 of us in my unit. It's small. There's like 10 officers. I was sitting in the room and that we were going to meet in, and the enlisted were about to have their enlisted meeting to talk about their side jobs. And I was like, oh, sorry, do you want me to like get up and go out while you guys have this? And the enlisted leader, Master Sergeant, he was like, I am not going to ask an officer to leave the room. And I was like, I like looked around and I looked down. I was like,
Oh, he's talking to me.
I was like, my bad. I was like, hey man, I was like, it's cool. I'm still a senior airman at heart. You can tell me what. He's like, no, Captain Parmiter, you sit right there. I was like, oh dang.
That moment, she's like,
you enjoy the show and give us whatever feedback we need to hear.
Actually, on second thought, I'm gonna go. You guys need anything? I'm gonna go grab you guys some coffee.
Exactly.
You know, just
Yes.
shifting that role of like, oh, I don't want to be perceived like in the wrong way. Because
Yeah.
I mean, there's that.
It's
That's
just different.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be a tough juxtaposition.
Yeah, so it's been a interesting transition, but I'm really blessed to be where I am now,
So
and
cool.
it's
Freaking rad.
I have no idea what I'm doing though.
Join the club.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
It's called life. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, this has been an incredible episode. Thank you, Sarah, for making this a priority. Lucas,
you.
what other things you want to?
So I've asked most of my questions, but I've got one that I know is it's certainly one that I think a lot of other people are asking, and that is what medical show is actually the most like working in a hospital, right? I feel like I have to ask this question to everybody. So I've got 5 here.
I love that. That's a good question.
Which are the ones that I like to go through? ER, Grey's Anatomy, House, Scrubs, or MASH. Which one of those is the most like actually working in?
Yeah, those are
in a
all
hospital?
excellent. I would say Scrubs.
This is the answer that I've heard most often, is that Scrubs is more like the legit what it actually is like to work in a hospital. And most people don't think that because it's like a goofy comedy show, but they're...
We're all just trying to figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
It's not as serious as it sounds.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, McSteamy and McDreamy aren't always in there trying to make
No.
decisions and eyes at the residents. That
No.
Yeah.
Grey's Anatomy is ridiculous. Never once have I been in a trauma bay where like the chief of dermatology is in the trauma bay, or like what is happening in the show?
what about like
Where are these people?
Like what's your view on House?
House is funny.
Okay. Yeah. So you look at it as like this is just pure like entertainment for
Yeah.
me.
But what's interesting is actually like I had a friend in medical schools from China. She watched House to learn English medical terminology. And it was very helpful because actually they go through some amazing differentials and like these bizarre cases that actually are real.
Yeah.
And like the way that they go through the differentials and the symptoms and the labs and everything, and you know it's always like presented in a very quirky way. But yeah, I mean, we have table rounds and we write on the whiteboard and try to figure things out and we go through that. But I mean, I've never been in a place where there's like 5 people dedicated to one patient trying to figure and go to their house and like look in their medicine cabinets. That's not going to happen.
You don't have a mildly crippled British man using an American accent breaking into people's homes.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. It's definitely
okay.
possible.
Cool.
Definitely possible.
I mean, nothing's off the table.
Nothing's off the table.
I think a lot of that is off the table. I think
Yeah.
they've explored that it is illegal to do a lot of those things
Yeah.
that the Dr.
Yeah, but he
House
didn't
does.
care.
No,
He did not
didn't.
care, yeah. I have heard the new show The Pit is very realistic, but I have not watched it.
I've never even heard of it.
I haven't watched it. It's
Yeah.
actually the guy from ER.
George
No,
Clooney?
not him. Noah something.
Okay.
He's in The Pit.
Cool.
All right, we'll have to check it out.
So
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's realistic.
Okay.
Scrubs is what I was hoping the answer would be.
Yeah, Scrubs, the attendings roast you on rounds, and it's just, yeah, the surgeons are the jocks, and the medicine and the nurses, and it's all very similar.
Oh,
You don't mess with the nurses, or they will make your life miserable,
It's a valid statement.
or
for
they
life.
will help you and be your savior,
Yeah.
depending on your day.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's just such a good testament. Like from that is just how you treat people,
100%.
like how you treat people, how you talk to them.
Yep.
Like just showing people respect for what they
Yeah.
do. I have gotten more favors, I guess you can call them, while traveling from gate agents and rental car individuals and hotel staff by just being polite, because they're dealing
Yeah.
with a-holes all day long. And then I come up to them, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry for everything you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I always make a joke like, I think it's amazing that you can control the weather.
Yeah.
And they crack a smile.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I know you're dealing with a lot of a-holes. I just have a question. I don't know if you can help me or not. Here's my situation. What do you think I should do? And by me showing them respect for me asking their opinion, it's crazy. It is
Oh,
crazy the
jeez.
amount of just loops that they'll go or jump through to like try to help me or get me in there. Hey, you know what? Actually, this flight is about to be canceled. I'm going to put you on this next one. Can you make it down to the gate? And I'm like, yep, boom. And
Yeah.
I'm running to the gate, and everyone else is like sitting around going, and then I
Yeah.
get on that flight and I get home.
Absolutely. Relationships are paramount. And in the hospital, that is everything. If you don't have good relationships with your nurses, techs, scrub techs, anesthesiologists, everyone you work with, it's a whole team. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And, I've had some comments from my new kind of crew, staff, and old of, they're saying like, oh, I can tell that you've like worked before because you know how to talk to people, which is bizarre. And I kind of laugh at it, but I'm like, oh, that's true, because so many, doctors and higher educated people that go straight through, they don't have very good people skills sometimes. And unfortunately, that comes out as arrogance and rudeness and demanding. And it just is really bad for building relationships. And they don't build those relationships with the people that they're supposed to be teammates with, honestly.
crazy.
And so it makes a world of a difference if, a nurse calls me in the middle of the night with a problem that I listen to her, and she's try to give her the benefit of the doubt that she's calling me at the 2 a.m. for a legitimate reason.
She's not calling you to annoy you.
Correct.
Or make your night worse.
Yeah.
Like she's not like, watch this.
Exactly.
She needs help.
Yeah. And exactly. And if other specialties call for a surgery consult, there's so many times that, you're tired and, you don't want to deal with it. And people will kind of scoff like, oh, why did internal medicine consult for me this? This is ridiculous. But they're calling because they need your help. So help them. Build that relationship, be there for them, and then you might need their help on some complicated like diabetes or hypertension plan later on that's not surgery related, and then they're going to help you out because you have that relationship.
We call that cover and move.
Exactly. Yes.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of cover and move, let's talk about some of the folks that help make this podcast happen. First off, if you want to be part of the conversation as we continue on making more of these podcasts, if you have questions about our interview with Sarah, stuff that we discussed with Andrew Paul, if you want to give us some feedback on maybe you've got some experiences like that and how the show has helped you and helped to develop you as a leader, as a human, follow us on Instagram. Check out at the JP Dinnell podcast. At JP Dinnell, it's 2 N's, 2 L's. I'm at Lucas Pinkard. Go check out Echelon Front. Now, the folks over at Echelon Front are the ones who teach the leadership lessons that Sarah was talking about. She follows. JP is the chief training officer at Echelon Front. Go check out on FTX. We talked a little bit about the muster. Go check out the muster. Muster 024. Tickets are on sale for the muster in Nashville.
In April, we have FTX 19 in March. I think it's already halfway sold out.
That's what I'm talking about. And is that an individual FTX?
It's the individual FTX, which is 2 days. And Cody and I are trying to work through stuff this week, or maybe next week at the latest, whether that week we'll also roll out our first advanced individual FTX.
Oh, bro.
So that'll only be available for individuals that have been through either a corporate or an individual FTX. So let's say your company, like Groundworks, you went through the individual FTX, and you're like, hey, I want to, you went through the corporate FTX and you want to do the advanced FTX, you can come to that. Or if you've attended any of the individual FTX, whether it is a 1 day, 2 day, or post-muster FTX, you can then at that point sign up for the advanced FTX. And that might, if we roll it out, That'll be that same week, but it will not be in DFW. We have a few different other locations that we're looking at. Yeah, so
I once
also
ate
the
it pretty
council,
hard.
Battlefield.
Yeah, while jumping a creek filming at FTX. So I think I'm ready for the advanced. But yeah, there is the council, there's the battlefield. Go check all that stuff out at echelonfront.com. If you want JP or one of the other instructors to work with your organization, you want to sign up for that Extreme Ownership Online Academy, go check out extremeownership.com. At echelonfront.com. And if you want a little bit more information, email info at Echelon Front.
Yep.
We talked about Little Cattle Co. Bruiser Arms is a company that JP, Leif, and Jocko partner with, are in partnership together with. They do custom gear packages and training. Make sure that you check them out if you need stuff to protect yourself and your home. On the Path Printing for all your apparel printing needs. Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu is an organization that we both belong to. On January 24th, we've got Victor Hugo coming into DFW at Six Blades Jiu-Jitsu, doing a free seminar, which is going to be awesome. And if you haven't seen it already, on the desks in front of us, we've got Jocko Goes, we've got Hydrates, because the things that keep us fueled to do this podcast are the people over at Jocko Fuel. Make sure that you go check them out. There's tons of studies that have been done on things like creatine and krill oil and all of these things that help keep you going day in and day out. The best place to get it, the cleanest supplements, are at jockofuel.com. Use code JPPOD20 to save 20% at checkout. And if you aren't already on their text message list, go get on it. The Def Reset has just started. We're just a couple of days into the new year. Make sure that you go sign up for the Def Reset. There's discounts that are available for people who are part of that. There's special deals going on for anybody who's connected to the Def Reset. And go sign up for your text messages over at originusa.com too. They've got factory seconds that are coming out that have to do with the giant just manufacturing boom that they saw at the end of 2025 with all the extra orders. There's some things that, you know what, maybe the jeans were a little bit too long. They've got some factory seconds that are out there. You can't tell the difference. Yeah. They also have a bunch of deals right now on training gear. Why? Well, because the Def Reset's going, and Pete and Amanda Roberts are in the game with that as well. So go check out those companies. They've been a huge supporter of our podcast and everything that we're doing. And I'm done talking. JP, what do you got?
Well, I know Sarah's going to close us out with some thoughts. You know, the question we always ask guests is, you know, if you could leave our audience with one piece of advice to help them win in life with the health, with sobriety, marriage, business, trauma, what would it be? But before you do that, when you and Brian were packing, getting ready to come out here, you asked me actually about creatine.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, do you have enough creatine for me to be able to have 7.5 grams a day? And I said, absolutely, because you didn't. If not, you're going to pack it. But, yeah. But why is that important to you? Why is creatine?
Love creatine. So creatine is one of the most studied supplements, period. And it is just proven time and time again to be safe and helpful for so many things. You know, the old kind of worry that people think that, oh, it's going to build up your kidneys. Well, creatinine that we measure kidney function is not creatine. And so it looks the same on paper, but it's not the same thing. And so any supplement, not just creatine, if you have already pre-existing poor kidney function, you should be speaking to your doctor about it. But if you're a normal person, healthy like us, you can have creatine every single day and it is not going to hurt you. It is very helpful. It does not build up in your kidneys. You know, so that's the common question I get. It is very studied to be safe. And so 5 grams a day is usually the starting that people say. And it usually takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for you to really feel the effects. But it's kind of a gradual onset for recovery, for stamina, for strength. But I've gone up to 7.5, and I'm probably going to end up going up to 10 eventually, because that's now what's being shown to also improve your cognitive function.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So and 5 in the morning, 5 at night?
Correct,
or
yeah.
all 10 at once?
So what I've been doing, now I'm at 7.5, and I'll probably do with 10, is I have a big water bottle. I put it all in at once with my salt, because I also drink salt water every day.
Wait, but I thought sodium was bad for you.
Oh, no. It turns out it's not bad for you.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Again, unless you're on dialysis and you have heart failure, right? But the majority of people, or otherwise a healthy individual, it's very helpful for hydration because your body works with your water and osmosis and salt and concentrations and things like that.
Heard some of these words before.
Right? It's all kind of coming together. And so if you just consume water all the time, you're actually not getting as hydrated as you think. It's not going to stay as intravascular as you think. It's going to what we call third space and kind of leak out into your capillaries. So the salt helps keep it in your vessels. And so for someone like me who's chronically hypotensive or has low blood pressure, that's very helpful. And for someone who likes to run, well, like is a strong word. For someone who runs and sweats,
Who tolerates
running for what I need to do, right? It's really important for hydration to actually stay hydrated. These Jocko hydrates are amazing on the go too. So I use those.
300 mgs of the sodium.
Yeah, I typically take in about 1,000 a day, sometimes up to 2,000 a day, depending on what's going on. Minimum of 1,000 a day for me personally, right? Everyone's different. And I mix that with my creatine and just sip the water bottle throughout the day.
That's huge. When you were going through that officer training in Alabama in the summer, you were telling me like the Jocko Fuel creatine and the hydration sticks that you add to your water was a game changer for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like a mandatory every day for me.
Yeah. And even if somebody's not going through that hard, hot physical activity, this is something that every human, unless they have those outlying things, but most people, our listeners, should be consuming the Jocko Fuel creatine and hydrates just as a baseline for optimal, like just, hey, you want to function throughout the day. You want to be able to pay attention, get rid of brain fog, help with the recovery.
It also helps like curb your cravings.
What?
Yeah. So you're keeping your body fueled with what it actually needs. It decreases your cravings for the junk that you don't need. So if you're actually getting fueled by the nutrients your body craves, like minerals, vitamins, salt, healthy things, you over time stop craving the junk. Like sugar, processed things.
Jelly beans.
Right? Jelly beans, exactly, yeah. So that, vitamin D is the other one. I have my Jocko vitamin D every day. And that's also been proven to reduce risk of colon cancer, improve heart health. There's tons of studies out there. And so I take one every day.
So what's your Jocko Fuel stack?
Oh, man.
Daily.
I might as well be 70 because I have a pill box. And I have my multivitamin. I have one with iron in it because I'm a female. That's helpful, right? For Jocko specifically, I have the Jocko vitamin D. I have the Jocko magnesium. I take zinc, and I take turmeric, and I take the fish oil, the krill oil.
Yep. Awesome. And then the creatine.
And then the creatine, and then
So
the
you
hydrates.
do fish oil and krill oil?
Or one or the other.
One or the other. Okay,
Yeah.
right on.
But you can
one or
do
the other.
both.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You don't need to do both, but one or the other, depending on which bottle I opened that month,
yeah.
basically.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
And in terms of, those are the vitamins, supplements, overall health, closing thoughts otherwise. I would say, circling back to when your kids are learning to walk and they fall down, when you fall down, just think of what your baby did or your niece or your nephew, right? They didn't stay down and feel sorry for themselves. So get back up and run. Don't stop.
Well, with that, I hope this episode has been a reminder for all of us to go do the work that's needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 119.